So were you the nanny or were you the girlfriend?
When we had opportunity, I still slept with him.
So you were both.
Tonight on 2020, the notorious murder case of the doctor with the perfect life and the perfect wife until she was found dead in a bathtub.
She is unconscious and underwater.
He said, I'm getting away with murdering my wife. And he goes, oh no, I'm glad the is dead.
And what about the nanny named Gypsy who entered the picture?
It looks like you've come in to claim your prize.
Gypsy Jillian Willis.
Her name is Gypsy.
Gypsy Jillian Willis. The person coming over's name was Gypsy.
Tonight, the whole story. Grieving daughters forced to play detective against their own father.
And I was just screaming. Killed her.
And the question that remains, was the nanny part of the whole scheme?
And she's actually Gypsy to the funeral.
You crashed her funeral?
I realize it looks pretty cold on the outside.
Pretty cold? It looks callous.
The Perfect Nanny. Here now, Elizabeth Vargas and David Muir.
As we come on the air tonight, a doctor and husband sits behind bars waiting to learn just how long he'll be there for murdering his wife. A case that's now back in the headlines because tonight a key player is talking to Elizabeth.
That's right, David. I've covered this story since it first began more than 5 years ago, and one question kept coming back. How could such a picture-perfect marriage crumble so quickly, ending with pills and murder, and a healthy wife found dead in a bathtub? And did it have anything to do with the family's perfect nanny? Or was she?
Michelle Summers was a fresh-faced beauty queen from California, a sometime model with a string of suitors. But it was a handsome, aspiring doctor named Martin McNeil who made her fall hard and fast. They eloped when Michelle was 21 and soon afterward started a family.
She had 4 kids in 5 years, so we were just boom, boom, boom.
Alexis and Rachel McNeil grew up idolizing their father.
We thought, what an inspiration to become a doctor, to become a lawyer.
I wanted to, follow in my father's footsteps. I always wanted to be a doctor, just like him.
A doctor who didn't just help heal his patients, but who also taught Sunday school at their local Mormon church, and who seemed to have a heart big enough to adopt 3 young Ukrainian orphans, Elle, Giselle, and Sabrina.
So from the outside looking in, it sounds like the perfect family.
Yeah.
If you're thinking it seems too good to be true, you're right. Take a closer look at the picture-perfect patriarch, and a different image begins to emerge.
Not the typical father. He was just very
haughty,
stern, haughty, arrogant.
Mm-hmm. He thought anyone that was not at his educational stature was very beneath him. He treated them very poorly.
The only 2 things I want you to learn in school. Number 1, how to use the English language effectively. Number 2, how to effectively use money.
When the family moved to the Utah community of Pleasant Grove, next-door neighbors Doug and Christy Daniels couldn't help but notice the contrast between Martin and Michelle.
She was very quiet, was always very pretty and very well kept.
All the girls were just dressed perfect, like a tea party.
But the Daniels say Martin was a braggart and a bore.
If Martin was ever around, it was him that always dominated every conversation. You could tell that he had a huge ego.
He just made sure to say that he was downsizing into his home and that he was a doctor and a lawyer.
Martin's adoring daughters often found themselves apologizing for their dad.
Everybody hated him.
Everyone hated him.
I was constantly trying to explain my father. When he'd come home, he was a completely different person. So we thought we knew the real person.
It was when Martin turned 50, his daughters say, that the quirks they'd always defended turned stranger. He became obsessed with the way he looked.
He started tanning a lot.
You mean going to tanning salons?
Tanning salons.
He lost weight.
He lost weight. He'd start exercising just all the time, just in the middle of a conversation, jumping and doing push-ups, things like that.
It was really bizarre. I mean,
really
very
strange.
Very out of the ordinary.
How did your mom react to all this behavior all of a sudden, this focus on physicality?
She was suspicious.
And even more suspicious as Alexis was when their father began disappearing for long stretches. This seemed less like a midlife crisis and more like an affair. When Alexis says Michelle confronted him about it, Martin made what seemed like the ultimate effort to change the topic. Newly fit and supremely tan, Martin told Michelle she should do some improving of her own.
Your dad decided that your mom should get a facelift.
Out of the blue. And my mom had never talked about that before or anything. She'd never been into plastic surgery.
So how much convincing did it take for your mom to agree to this?
Quite a bit, actually. She saw my dad tanning, getting all in shape. So I think, my mom was just a little concerned too. Oh, well, maybe I should do a couple things, maybe that will help.
Wavering but wanting to keep her husband happy, Alexis says Michelle reluctantly agreed to the facelift.
And my mom said, Martin, let's just wait until the summer. I would be home from medical school for my summer break, and so I could help with the recovery. And my dad said, oh no, Alexis, you have spring break coming up in a week. Let's do it then.
In a week?
My dad said, we have everything set up, the anesthesiology.
You say that the next morning when you saw your mom, she was heavily medicated.
She was completely sedated and out of it. The next day, it took a pretty much 24-hour period until she kind of regained consciousness and was able to talk to me. And she said, Alexis, your dad, he just kept giving me medicines. And I went right to my dad. And he goes, I don't know, I must have done something wrong. And he said, oh, and your mother threw up. So then I gave her more medicine. I said, Dad, don't give her any more medicine. I'm gonna take over.
Alexis spends the next 4 nights taking care of her mother and monitoring her medication. Michelle seems to be feeling better. But one morning, as Alexis was washing her mother's hair, she says Michelle dropped a bombshell.
She started to cry. She said, if anything happens to me, make sure it wasn't your dad. And I said, Mom, what do you mean? What are you saying? And she just said, make sure if anything happens to me, it wasn't your dad.
Alexis alone knows her mother's terrible secret fear, but Alexis would soon discover her father was keeping secrets too. Phone records revealed he was making calls at all hours of the day and night to the same number. Who was on the other end of the line? See what's next.
The Perfect Nanny continues. Once again, Elizabeth Vargas.
Michelle McNeil is recovering from a facelift her daughters say she had only to please her husband, Martin. Daughter Alexis gets ready to go back to medical school, still troubled by a strange warning she says her mother gave her about her father. But she is happy that Michelle appears to be on the mend.
The doctor said she was healing great. She looked great. Went out to Sizzler. She had a steak dinner. She was feeling great. They dropped me off at the airport. I just remember looking back and seeing my mom and waving.
But the next morning, less than 24 hours later, there would be a 911 call from the McNeil home.
Swollen in the bathtub.
Okay, is she conscious?
She's not in a position.
Martin McNeil, a prominent local doctor, sounds frantic.
She is unconscious. She's underwater.
Okay, did you get her out of the water?
Yeah, I couldn't spot her. Let the water out.
Veteran 911 dispatcher Heidi Johnson is on the line.
It was really hard to understand him because he was yelling very hysterically at me.
Okay, is she breathing at all?
So I tried to calm him down and tried to get the information from him.
Okay, do you know how to do CPR?
I'm doing it.
Okay, do not...
But he didn't want to stay on the line with me and he hung up.
In fact, Martin hangs up not once but 3 times in less than 5 minutes. And he fails to give an audible address. As a result, Heidi Johnson loses precious minutes figuring out where to send the ambulance. Meanwhile, Martin sends the youngest McNeil child, 6-year-old Ada, next door to neighbor Christy Daniels.
And she said, my dad needs some help.
It was Ada, just home from school, who first found Michelle unconscious in the bathtub.
So I ran in and, followed his voice into the bathroom, and he says, "I've already called 911. I need a male's help."
A man's help to lift his dying wife from the tub? Crucial time passes as Martin sends Christy to call for her husband, Doug.
And I just immediately went straight to her legs and grabbed her legs, and Martin grabbed her upper body, and we lifted her out of the tub and onto the floor.
Doug says it is chaos in the bathroom, with Martin veering from frantic attempts at CPR to fury.
He would calmly be doing puffs of air, and then he would suddenly have an outburst of yelling, why, all for a stupid surgery.
In the midst of it all, the phone rings. It is Alexis calling from medical school in Nevada. She is surprised when her father answers.
He said, your mom, she's in the tub. She's not breathing. I've called an ambulance. And then he hung up.
For Alexis, in that moment, her mother's terrible secret fears begin to crystallize.
I just dropped all my books and started driving to the airport. And I was just screaming. He killed her. That was my first instinct. He killed her.
Before you left, your mom said, if anything happens to me, make sure it wasn't your dad who killed me.
My dad had no idea that my mom had confided in me. And I knew I was the only one that knew this, so I needed to start figuring out what had happened and protect the rest of my family, because my dad was a killer.
Alexis's older sister Rachel has also been trying to call home and finally gets through to her father.
I said, "Dad, what's going on? Is it something with Mom?" And he said, "Rachel, come home." And so I called Alexis, and I said, "Alexis, I know it. Mom's dead." I said, she's dead. And Alexis said, yes.
Stunned and grief-stricken, the two sisters return to their parents' home. Alexis takes Rachel aside.
She walked with me into the closet and said, "Rachel, Dad murdered Mom. I know he did." I said, "What are you talking about?" I thought Alexis might have just been
overly emotional or
just devastated.
But soon, Rachel starts wondering. Her father's story of what happened doesn't seem to add up.
Okay, do not hate.
Why would this experienced doctor hang up repeatedly on the 911 operator? And why would a seemingly fit man need another man's help to rescue his dying wife?
It was very strange to me that he couldn't lift my mother out of the tub, because he was finishing the downstairs basement a few days prior, and I had helped him lift sheetrock in.
And Alexis had her own questions about Michelle's pills. She asks her father, where are those powerful painkillers and sedatives, and how many did her mother take on a morning when she had been recovering well from her facelift?
I said, "Where's the medicine?" And he said, I don't know where it is. Check in the garage.
But she finds no medications, and when she asks her father again, he says they've been thrown out. And why?
It was making him too sad to look at, to see this medication. I mean, as soon as I heard that, things were just starting to add up. Everything was adding up.
Now both sisters begin to suspect the inconceivable, because Alexis tells her sister about something else that happened just weeks before Michelle died. When her father had started to disappear for long stretches, Alexis says her mother asked her to do some late-night investigating.
While he was sleeping, I went online and printed out all of his phone records. And we found this number that he'd been calling a lot.
A number being dialed day and night. Alexis did an online search.
And it popped out the name of the person.
And it was?
Gypsy Jillian Willis. And I was like, who's this? I mean, we thought it was maybe some like stripper or something. Who's named Gypsy?
Who is Gypsy? Well, meet Gypsy Jillian Willis, a 30-year-old nursing student when she met Martin McNeil in an internet chat room. Her screen name, Phoenix Sheba. He told her his name was Joe.
He sent me a message. He asked me what I knew about quantum physics.
You bonded over quantum physics?
There was just instant chemistry. He was tall, he was handsome, he was very well spoken.
Did you know he was married?
I did. Yeah.
And that didn't ring any alarm bells for you on the ethics front?
Not at that point. I wasn't looking for a serious relationship, and he told me that he had a perfect life, that he had a perfect wife.
A perfect wife and a suspicious death. 3 days after Michelle was found dead in the bathtub, her grieving family attends her funeral. And standing in that crowd that day, Martin's lover, Gypsy.
Why would you go to her funeral? Who invited you?
No one invited me. I just found out where it was.
You crashed her funeral?
I had felt sorry that I had been involved with Martin inappropriately.
I felt that was sorry. The way to show that sorrow was to go to her funeral?
No one knew who I was.
Martin knew who you were.
Martin knew who I was, and that's why I was there. I knew it would be a hard time for him.
Gypsy isn't about to let Martin's mourning distract him. She sends Martin text messages in the middle of Michelle's funeral. She had even sent him semi-nude photos of herself the day after Michelle died.
You did send him 2 suggestive pictures of your naked back. Why did you do that?
I wanted to keep his attention. It's cold. It sounds heartless. I'm sorry. But I knew that he would be having a hard time, not thinking of me, and that was selfish.
You understand that from the outside looking in, you're having an affair with this man, the wife inexplicably dies, you show up to her funeral, send him text messages during the funeral. It looks like you've come in to claim your prize.
I did not look at it like that.
But that's what it looked like to Martin's daughters when they made another startling discovery.
We'd come to find out that my dad had been dating Gypsy for several years before my mom's death.
Less than a month after his wife dies, Martin McNeil moves Gypsy into the house to care for his motherless children.
So were you the nanny or were you the girlfriend? So what do you think of Gypsy? And if you had the chance to interview her, what questions would you ask? Tweet me using hashtag ABC2020. We'll be right back.
Still to come, how did Martin McNeil's fairy tale marriage end up in a bathtub with a 911 call and his wife lying face down? Or was she?
This bathtub, ladies and gentlemen, has an important story to tell.
The Perfect Nanny continues next. 2020 continues with The Perfect Nanny.
In the hours after Michelle McNeil's death, Pleasant Grove police detectives see no reason to treat the bathroom where she died like a crime scene. They collect no evidence from the McNeil house. And the only person they interview is her husband, Martin, who they know is a well-established local doctor. He tells them he believes his wife passed out while preparing the tub.
I thought that if this is a healthy woman that died, that there would be some sort of big police investigation. Their police report onto my mother's death is about 2.5 paragraphs.
The medical examiner determines that hypertension and an existing heart infection called myocarditis caused Michelle's heart to fail. In other words, death by natural causes.
Natural cause? She's not an old woman.
She just turned 50 years old. I mean, she had a few issues. She had a little bit of high cholesterol, some high blood pressure.
Police close the case. Alexis and Rachel are stunned. But their father is moving on, and quickly. He arranges a funeral within 3 days, and just 2 days after is back at work. And even though Alexis and Rachel say they have offered to come home to care for the 4 younger McNeil children, their father announces he will hire a nanny. And he already seems to have one in mind.
And he said, "Oh, I found the perfect nanny." And I said, "What's her name?" And he said, "Oh, I think it's Jillian." I said, "Dad, Gypsy Jillian Willis." I said, "I know that woman. I know Mom was worried you were having an affair with her, and you were not to bring her in the home."
But Martin would not be deterred. He calls a family meeting.
And he said, there is going to be an interview for a nanny, and there was only one candidate, and that was Gypsy.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
And she got the job.
She didn't cook, she didn't clean, she didn't take care of the children in any way.
Why did you move into the home?
Martin told me that he needed help with his younger children.
Were you still sleeping with him?
I was.
So were you the nanny or were you the girlfriend?
I moved in to help with the kids. When we had opportunity, I still slept with him.
So you were both?
If you want to look at it like that.
But Martin's daughters didn't like the look of that one bit.
She walked into the house like she owned the place. And then when I questioned my dad and said, what's going on? He said, oh, she's a guest in our home, and how dare you question me? He said, if you fight me, I'm gonna get you thrown out of medical school. He started threatening me, I'm gonna take you down.
I was told that I needed to leave the home because I wasn't nice to Gypsy. He wanted to make it known that it was either Gypsy or his children, and he chose the nanny.
Yeah.
The nanny.
3 months after moving into the McNeil home, Gypsy took Martin back to Wyoming to meet her parents, Harold and Vicki Willis.
He said, I never loved Michelle, but I loved Gypsy. And I said, but you had a family with Michelle. He says, actually, I loved her as a friend, I loved her as a sister, but I never loved her like I loved Gypsy.
During that trip, Martin proposed to Gypsy in front of her family. Gypsy's sister Julie was there.
He gave this grand speech about how he loved her and how he loved her from the moment he saw her, and he knelt and proposed to her, and Gypsy cried. It was very fairy tale.
This was the man who'd been telling you just a couple months earlier that he had the perfect life and the perfect wife.
Yeah.
So you must have been shocked when 3 months after she died, he proposed marriage to you.
I wasn't shocked. It just, like I said, it seemed very natural. It seemed like a natural progression. I believe he loved his wife. He did sincerely mourn Michelle, but she was gone. And I didn't suspect anything unusual.
So you're saying he never told you, I wish I wasn't married to Michelle?
He never said that.
I wish Michelle was dead?
No, he never said that.
I'd rather be with you and not Michelle?
He didn't say that.
Martin didn't say he'd rather be with Gypsy, but was he thinking it? And what was she thinking?
Don't you think it's a little funny that he goes from saying, I love Michelle, to, oops, she died, move in, let's continue sleeping together while you take care of my kids, and will you marry me?
I realize that it looks pretty cold on the outside.
Cold. Gypsy's own sister Julie goes even further.
I would consider Gypsy to be a deceptive, malevolent, malicious, calculating person.
Calculating and violent.
It wasn't right.
Julie says Gypsy had feuded with her and other family members for years. And even Gypsy admits to having a fist fight with her mother over ownership of a dog, the last time she ever saw her family.
I was bruised from head to toe. I had a sprained knee. I had choke marks around my neck.
She lunged forward and she bit me on my upper left bicep. A bad bite. You could count every single tooth mark. She doesn't care who gets hurt. She doesn't care what circumstances are ruined.
Fist fighting is one thing, but could Gypsy have gone so far as to help Martin kill Michelle?
If she sees something she wants, she will rationalize it to herself to the point where she will get that. And it doesn't matter who stands in her way.
Those are your family.
I know.
They think that you're capable of murder.
They are horrible and they are hateful. It is appalling that my family would say such things. And I think it is completely unfounded and unjust.
In this family feud, is Gypsy's sister embittered or the person who knows Gypsy best? Julie Willis says Gypsy found the perfect match in Martin McNeil.
In a bad way, they were perfect for each other. Together, I believe that they are perfectly capable of killing Michelle. They're like a pack of dogs. One dog alone might be malicious, might take a nip out of things, but two dogs together hunting are lethal.
Stay with us.
Once again, Elizabeth Vargas.
4 years ago, two desperate sisters took their story to 2020 after a small-town police department closes the case on their mother's death in the family bathtub and let their father, Martin McNeil, off scot-free.
Not only would they not listen, they were mocking us. They were saying, you're ridiculous. You guys are just upset that, you know, your dad has had an affair. Lots of people have affairs.
But they found a sympathetic ear in Doug Whitney, an investigator at the Utah County Attorney's Office. 2 years after Michelle's death, they convince him to reopen the case. And when he does, he finds something surprising. Martin was not the man he claimed to be. This prominent doctor and lawyer actually had a life based on 3 decades of lies, stretching all the way back to his days in college and his school transcript.
His entire career is based on falsified transcripts from different colleges.
Well, so then how did he go about practicing medicine?
The guy is brilliant. I'm not saying that he's not smart. He just
didn't take the necessary classes.
And he lies.
And that was only the beginning of his lies. The summer after Michelle's death, Martin stole his 14-year-old adopted daughter Giselle's identity. He applied for a new Social Security card using Giselle's personal information and Gypsy's name.
They went into court and changed the birth date, 20 years. That's called perjury. Now there's 2 people with that Social Security number. There's 2 people with that name.
And that new false Social Security card number was only the beginning.
How did this idea come up to take Giselle's identity, her Social Security number, her passport, and adopt it as yours?
When I got together with Martin, I had a lot of tax debt, probably in the range of $50,000 or $60,000. This was Martin. This is Martin's idea. This was Martin's activity.
Why did you do it?
I said I didn't want to. He said that this is the best way to do it. It's temporary. It's not going to hurt anybody. No one will notice.
But someone did notice, namely Doug Whitney, when he starts looking closely at Michelle's death. He discovers that Martin and Gypsy are amassing fake IDs all over Utah.
You're talking about a state ID card. You're talking about bank accounts that were opened up under false names.
Martin did a lot of things that were not very sensible.
So you're saying Martin did all of this without your knowledge?
He would tell me he was doing things, and I'd be like, okay, whatever.
You got 2 fake military ID cards, 3 joint banking accounts using a fake name. You got a fake birth certificate, a fake Utah state ID card, and a fake Social Security card. And you're saying all you did was sort of sign away and not ever ask or wonder how many laws I've broken? How could you be a passive participant in that?
Martin was very powerful. He was very influential. I just assumed that he knew what he was doing. He'd been successful all of his life.
Gypsy, you're an educated person. You bonded over quantum physics. And now you want me and us, the authorities, to believe that you just checked your brain at the door and agreed to all this?
When you love someone, you do things that don't make a lot of sense. He had everyone confused. He was this pillar of the community. He'd been bishop twice. I mean, he had all of the accoutrements to be convincing.
Martin McNeil's gigantic con job was stopped short by Doug Whitney's investigation. He had both Martin and Gypsy arrested for identity theft, and they were convicted in federal court and sent to prisons in Texas. And while they are behind bars, investigators go for broke and work to pin Michelle's death on Martin.
I will simply say that I believe that Martin McNeil is a sociopath.
They begin chipping away at Martin's version of the story of his wife's final bath and ask some tough questions. Why couldn't a fitness addict like Martin lift his wife out of the bathtub alone? Could Martin's relationship with Gypsy be a motive for murder? The questions raise suspicions, but it's still not enough to charge Martin with murder. Then the prosecutors catch a break. Something happens in prison that lands McNeil in hot water. And weeks after his release from prison on the fraud charge, he is arrested again, this time for murder.
There is a big trial getting underway in Utah.
There was no doubt in my mind that one day this case was going to be reopened.
5.5 years after Michelle died, Martin McNeil sat once again before a judge, this time fighting for his life.
This case is a puzzle with many pieces.
The trial opens with McNeil's defense attorneys claiming Michelle died of natural causes.
What is very important in this case is that none of the medical examiners believe that Michelle's death was due to a homicide.
The jury of 5 men and 3 women was about to hear Martin's sordid secrets when witnesses reveal how he really felt about Michelle.
And he goes, I'm glad the is dead.
Next.
2020's The Perfect Nanny continues. Once more, Elizabeth Vargas.
Taking center stage, a model of a bathtub. It was called the case of the murder in the bathtub, gripping the country for weeks.
She finds her mom dead in the tub.
Martin McNeil on trial for his wife's murder.
Let me just say, may they rot in hell.
Martin McNeil sat in a Utah courtroom charged with the premeditated murder of his wife and the mother of their 8 children. His chief accusers, his own grown daughters who believe their dad was a killer.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
But Martin's defense team tries to discredit the daughter's version of events, sticking to the coroner's original report that Michelle's death was from natural causes.
Martin McNeil is innocent, ladies and gentlemen.
The trial begins with Michelle's cosmetic surgeon, Dr. Scott Thompson.
Good morning, Dr. Thompson.
Morning.
He runs through the laundry list of drugs he prescribed for Michelle following her routine facelift surgery.
Keflex, Phenergan, Valium is the anxiety medication, Percocet, Ambien for the sleeping, erythromycin eye ointment, the Medrol dose pack, the hydrocodone elixir liquid medication for pain.
Thompson admits he wouldn't normally prescribe so many drugs, but that Martin, a fellow doctor, assured him that he wouldn't let Michelle take too many pills.
Why did you prescribe it here?
Because Martin was a physician and he asked me for these things.
Was it your intention that Michelle take all these drugs together?
No.
Would you have prescribed this combination to her if Martin was not a physician?
No.
On the stand, Martin's daughter Alexis testifies that Martin forced Michelle to take more drugs than she wanted.
She said, Lexi, I don't know why, but your dad kept giving me medication. He kept giving me things, telling me to swallow. And she said I even started to throw up, but then he started giving me more medication.
Did she make any specific requests?
She actually had me take out every single pill from the pill bottles, and she wanted to feel what the pills felt like in her fingers, so that if my dad tried to give her anything, she'd know what he was giving her, because at that time she couldn't see.
But the jury would not hear a crucial piece of evidence, something that Alexis revealed to 2020 about Michelle's fears just days before her death.
She said, if anything happens to me, make sure it wasn't your dad.
Those damning words are ruled too prejudicial by the judge. The jury never hears them. So the prosecution instead hones in on Martin's movements the morning Michelle died.
There's about an hour-and-a-half period of time where no one really knows where Martin is.
A timeline shows a 90-minute gap between the time Martin left work and when he picked up 6-year-old Ada from school.
Plenty of time. Rush home, take care of your business, give Michelle the drugs, fix her up a bath, get her in the tub, hold her head down for a little while, and help her out.
Witnesses say Martin was frantic that day.
I could hear Martin yelling that he needed help.
I asked him what happened.
And what did he tell you?
He said, well, he went into the room and he described it as he saw her face down the wrong way in the tub.
As a crucial centerpiece of their case, prosecutors haul in a replica of the bathtub where Michelle was found.
This bathtub, ladies and gentlemen, has an important story to tell, okay?
Witnesses reenact what they saw. Neighbor Christy Daniels testifies that when she entered the bathroom, she saw Michelle facing up and lying inside the bathtub, partially undressed. That contradicts Martin's description of the scene.
Was Michelle dressed or not?
What I remember is Michelle had a long black sleeve shirt on and nothing else.
Okay, no bottoms.
No bottoms.
Prosecutors argue that Martin tried to make it look as though Michelle had been taking a bath and that she slipped under the water. But he had been interrupted when the neighbors arrived sooner than he expected.
It's a very small bathtub. It'd be almost impossible in this bath to slip under the water.
So why would Martin try to stage a drowning accident? Prosecutors argue it all comes back to Gypsy.
He was at a crossroads. He had to choose between Michelle and Gypsy. He chose Gypsy. He chose Gypsy over Michelle.
And although it is Martin McNeil who is on trial for murder, it seems as though everyone has something to say about Gypsy.
It's Gypsy Jillian Willis.
Her name is Gypsy.
Gypsy Jillian
The
Willis.
person coming over's name was Gypsy.
Jillian Willis.
The jury hears how Martin lied to his children, telling them Gypsy was just the nanny.
Because she was nothing like my mom.
Did you ever see your dad and Jillian interact?
Yes.
What did you see?
I remember her going up into my dad's room at night and then have the door closed, and I just remember staying up at night thinking, what in the world? I mean, I thought she was our nanny. Why is she up in Dad's room?
The testimony of his children may have been devastating to Martin McNeil, but what may have sealed his fate was a string of inmates from his time in prison while serving 2 years for identity fraud.
Did Martin talk to you at all about the relationship he had with his wife before she died?
A little bit, yes.
Do you recall what he said?
That she was not going to let him keep cheating on her.
Did he say whether he actually was cheating on her?
Oh yeah, he told me about his girlfriend.
Did he tell you what his girlfriend's name was?
I don't remember. I don't recall.
Her name was Dipsy or Gypsy or something like that.
Some of the inmates request that their identity be concealed for fear of reprisal in prison for snitching.
Doc, they say you murdered your wife.
And he's like, I can get away with a lot of things.
Did he say anything else about that?
Yeah, he's getting away with the murder with his wife.
He called her a
And I just went up to him and said, hey man, I apologize about your wife. And he goes, I'm glad the is dead.
Okay.
The prosecution rests its case, and the defense calls a handful of character witnesses and a medical examiner to drive home its main argument, that there is no proof that Michelle is a murder victim.
Is there a real possibility that the inmates are not telling the truth? Yes, there is.
Defense lawyers continue to cling to the original autopsy report, citing a natural death.
They don't rise to the level of proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
The jury doesn't buy it.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
After 3 weeks of testimony and 11 hours of deliberation, the jury returns a verdict. Martin is stone-faced, listening as it's read.
As to count 1, murder, guilty.
Guilty of first-degree murder.
It was such a relief. Been fighting for this for so long, and I never thought we'd come to this day. I never thought it would make it to even trial, and then to be in that courtroom and hear guilty just was a flood of emotions.
Alexis's father will likely be in prison for the rest of his life, and the woman at the center of the storm, Martin's mistress, Gypsy, she has an alibi for where she was the day Michelle died, and she was never charged with anything related to her death. But Alexis is not convinced.
I do believe that Gypsy was involved with my mother's death. She was the motive, and I know she knows more than she portrayed in court.
So many people think that you must have known.
No.
Or that you were in on it.
That is incorrect.
Michelle's daughters choose not to dwell on that question.
Finally having justice for my mother, who means everything to me. And she was taken away from me, from all of us. And we're finally getting justice for her.
Tonight, Martin McNeil is still behind bars, waiting to be sentenced. He faces 15 years to life. As for Gypsy, she's now hired a publicist. She says she's got a story to tell. We'll be right back.
And now your first look at a 2020 exclusive breaking 1 week from tonight right here. A mother on the run with her 2 little boys, and 2 fathers back here in America desperate to track down the fugitive mom and their beloved sons. We take you from Los Angeles to Paris to Geneva. And what happens when we track down that mom?
Next Next Friday, it's a furious worldwide manhunt to find this stunning woman and her 2 young boys. They vanished, taken when she abducted them, fleeing the country, leaving 2 desperate fathers searching for the ex-wife turned fugitive.
Everything I thought she was false.
Now follow the heart-pounding clues. I'm terrified. That shockingly reveals her boys disguised, posing as girls. And see what happens when David Muir tracks her down.
Why take the boys and run?
On the Run, 2020, next Friday after Shark Tank on ABC.
Wow. Hope those boys are okay, and you'll have an update on that on the program as well. And that's our program for tonight. I'm Elizabeth Vargas.
I'm David Muir. From all of us here at ABC News in 2020, thanks for watching. Have a great evening. Good weekend. Good night.
I want people to enjoy what I do and understand what I'm doing is for their enjoyment. And that's all I can ask for.
Tonight, saying goodbye and celebrating the life of Regis.
Oh, no, I hate memory lane.
No.
You ever get somebody who jumps
It's a woman!
The man who got us started in the morning for so many years.
His talent was being himself completely and making everybody else the star of the show.
And the one who made millionaires out of everyday people.
He's won $1 million!
The living history of TV.
That Regis Philbin Show.
In just one man. What did it take to get the chemistry so right?
No matter what, you don't let your partner fail. And he never let me fail.
His co-host through the years.
She's the one.
The more outrageous.
How are your hemorrhoids? Are you all right?
The more outrageous.
I called him a jerk. He called me one right back, and the sparks flew.
The moments you'll always remember that turned funny business into TV gold.
It's hurting my arm!
Tonight, we're taking you back to where it all began.
Give me the dirt. What was Regis like as a kid?
And to his last interview ever with Jimmy Kimmel.
Regis, no one will ever be better at doing this than you. No one, never.
Tonight, to our favorite funny man, our friend, and even more, our family.
I've got a show to do.
We say farewell. Reporting now, Amy Robach.
It's Live with Regis and Kelly.
From Live
Don't look at him!
to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire,
Who wants to be a millionaire?
his one-of-a-kind wit and warmth brought smiles to viewers for decades. A familiar and welcome household staple. Tonight, tributes are still pouring in for Regis Philbin after his death of natural causes at 88 years old on Friday. From David Letterman, Regis is in the same category as Carson, superlative. To his former co-host Kathy Lee Gifford, Regis, there will never be another. And the Philbin family expressing their gratitude for their time with him and his singular ability to make every day into something worth talking about. And for this broadcast, I was able to spend some time with the last person to sit side by side with Regis on the set of Live, his co-host of 11 years, Kelly Ripa.
Regis was a man with such youthful energy. What went through your mind when you heard the news?
There was a moment where I had this incredible hope that it was somehow misreported. I thought, oh, is he going to have a field day making fun of this story? Because it seemed like he was somebody that would be here forever.
When the news finally settled in, who did you think of first?
I thought of Joanna and JJ, his daughters, of course, Joy, whom he worshipped. Joy was everything to Regis, absolutely everything. And then my thought went to Kathy Lee. Those were Regis's women.
And now, here's Regis and Kathy Lee.
Hello, everybody.
Let me get your umbrella for you, Mr. Philbin.
I love this.
And when 2020 celebrated his retirement in 2011 with the Katie Couric special, Regis revealed some of the secrets of his success, including a peek at a backstage routine that was virtually the same for nearly 3 decades.
I've got a show to do.
A preview of the day's tape package by 8:30.
Here we go. Roll it.
A newspaper delivery at 8:40, courtesy of his wardrobe consultant, Goldie.
And Goldie's here, his main job is
$7,000 a
to
week.
give you
For
the-
what?
For what?
And at 8:45, a read-in on the rundown by executive producer extraordinaire Michael Gelman.
Oh my God, Gelman just walked in. He's never been this early, but I guess he heard Kelly.
Yes, I heard extra camera time if I came early.
Yeah. Okay, what time is it?
30 seconds.
Now, here are Regis Philbin.
Then at 9 a.m. sharp, Ready or Not, live went live. Unvarnished, unrehearsed, and unscripted.
What you're looking at here is guerrilla television.
You might say Regis put the real in reality TV.
Well, whatever reality we can make on our show, that to me is interesting, you know.
Bruno, how are you? Nice to see you.
And while on that farewell tour 2011, Regis took Katie out for lunch at his favorite Midtown Manhattan restaurant, Circo.
This is awfully good.
Where they discussed his storied career.
Grazie, Bruno.
Thank you.
After all, he'd been a ubiquitous presence on television for 50 years, shattering his own world record for the most time of anyone on the air. And in case you're keeping score, it now stands at 16,746 and a half hours. From Sportscaster,
John Hufnagel will be the quarterback when the Broncos take the field against the New York Jets Saturday night.
to news anchor,
Today, the White House subpoena hearing is in court again.
to red carpet reporter.
Where'd you get this dress?
Well, I had this dress made just for this.
And how? Everything was
I wanted to look like old Hollywood.
Is there anything you wish you had done that you haven't?
I wish I didn't have to wait till I was in my late 50s before the good part of my life started in this business. That's what I regret, that it was kind of a late start for me.
Long before he achieved morning glory, Regis hoped his star would shine in late night. But he spent years learning the ropes on local talk shows from San Diego to St. Louis.
And tomorrow I'll be lonesome, remembering
He thought he'd hit the jackpot in 1967 when he was asked to be the announcer on The Joey Bishop Show.
Regis Philbin.
And how great was that, hearing that a member of the Rat Pack was interested in talking to you as his sidekick?
Yeah, sidekick, yeah. Well, you know what happened? I walked in, and there was Joey in a sweater.
Of course.
Yeah, and he said, you know, I saw you last night. You've got a lot of talent. I said, really, Joey? What is my talent? I could never do that now, but I threw it right back, and all of a sudden, I had Joey on the defensive, thinking, what is his talent?
What were you thinking?
And I'm thinking, maybe I shouldn't have asked that, you know? But I said, well, this is going to be good. And he took his time, and he stood up, and he finally said, I'll tell you what your talent is. You are a great listener. I said, what? A great? That it?
This coat does something to you. I don't want you to wear it again.
He listened to Bishop's banter for 3 years, but competing against Johnny Carson was too tall an order.
Hi, everybody, and Merry Christmas to everybody.
When his dreams of late night faded, Regis was back to pounding the pavement in the daylight, taking jobs like hosting the Disney parade.
Are you still fantasizing?
It would take nearly 2 decades.
What?
A change of coasts,
Now you're talking.
and a series of co-hosts before just the right chemistry made Regis Philbin a reliable fixture on morning television.
You've got great legs, Reg. I really.
And once they meshed, it was magic.
I think you could stay another year.
And you know you've arrived when you're getting the Saturday Night Live treatment.
The wife had me put the tux on with the shoes and the cummerbund. I don't mind saying I look great.
But Regis's accidental star wouldn't just rise and shine in the morning. In 1999, he hit primetime prominence as host of the ABC juggernaut game show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
He just won $1 million.
When you watched him throughout the years, he made it all seem so effortless, and doing what he did is actually really hard work. What was his talent?
His talent was being himself completely and making everybody else the star of the show. That was his talent. And I think it was his genuine love and appreciation of people. He really was a people person.
Next, the chemistry and the co-hosts who got his goat and got the ratings.
I called him a jerk the first week we worked together, and He called me one right back, and the sparks flew.
For years, my kids thought that I was Regis's receptionist. They thought that I was his assistant.
Coming up. Once again, Amy Robach.
In the book of dynamic comedy duos, you'll find Abbott and Costello, Martin and Lewis, Lucy and Ricky, and Regis Philbin with just about anybody who sits beside him.
Did you ever get somebody who jumps
It's a
in?
woman!
And the line is!
A class photo of his former co-host is a collection of leading ladies who learned from the best. The morning maestro himself.
I think I learned from Regis to be authentic on camera.
With his co-host Sarah Purcell, Regis would strike TV gold in a segment called Host Chat.
What is this you're wearing? This looks like early Daniel Boone.
It would be his secret sauce for the next 3 decades.
Exactly my thoughts.
Okay. Regis regaling his co-host with tales from events of the night before.
Well, last night went up to Yankee Stadium with some friends. Derek Jeter, first pitch, bang, hits a home run.
No writers and no holds barred.
The whole monologue at the beginning is about what you did the night before, so you don't talk about any of that ahead of time. And it worked. It absolutely worked.
There is something about working with Regis. You really have to expose your personal life. I mean, you talk about everything.
John had a terrible cold, so I...
Oh, the weakest excuse I've ever heard of my John had a cold, and they couldn't talk about marriage?
It was 1980, and his morning brash got the attention of network brass. NBC wanted him, and he wanted Mary Hart.
Mary, how are you? Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, and it's
I'm
nice
walking down Rodeo Drive, and I see a camera crew up the street. I walk by, and all of a sudden, Regis Philbin stands up, interrupts what he's doing, and he goes, "She's the one."
The Regis Philbin show got canceled after just 7 months, but for Mary, it was the chance of a lifetime.
right here, you know, as Mary steps here, and a boom, and she's out that window.
He had left this booming, popular show locally to go to the network, and then the rug was pulled out completely from both of us, and I lucked out. I'm Mary Hart for Entertainment Tonight. They came to talk to me about what it feels like to be on a show that's canceled. Great. And the next day they offered me a job. I think he held it against me for a very long time.
Regis moved back to local TV, this time in the Big Apple, trying to find the next big break.
Thank you very much. Hello.
He worked with Cindy Garvey and then Ann Abernathy. But in 1985, the maestro met his match. The result? TV dynamite.
Here comes Kathy Lee Johnson.
I put on my sneakers and did the run because I was still doing Good Morning America at the time, and came in all breathless. And
is this the way it's going to be every morning?
I called him a jerk the first week we worked together, and he called me one right back pretty much, and the sparks flew.
Even New York City couldn't contain the fire. On September 5th, 1988, Regis would go national once again, and this time, the shtick would stick.
By the way, I haven't asked you in a while. How are your hemorrhoids? Are you all right? I think in a weird way, if you hate reality television today, you sort of have to blame Reg and myself for that, because we were the first ones that I know of that ever got paid to talk about their lives for a living. You've been wanting to do this for 13 years, haven't you?
This is as close as you're going to ever get, believe me when I tell you.
It seems so real that people actually thought Regis and Kathy Lee were married.
Isn't she cute? Isn't she a doll? She's my woman.
Even now, after 11 years of not being with him anymore professionally, Regis will announce his presence as he's coming through the door. That's right, Regis is here. That's right, the king, Regis, yes, and look who's here. She won't leave me alone.
You know, people very often called me Kathy Lee because we happened to resemble each other. And people would see him with a redhead and think it was, of course, Kathy Lee.
Yesterday we had one of our many crises.
Oh, you mean because we were not speaking?
And we...
That's another
The most frequent substitute co-host from 1975 on was Joy Philbin, who shared a lot more than a stage with Regis.
Women have asked me if I have had to deal with any jealousies, because after all, he does spend a lot of time with very beautiful, very smart women. We have been married so long that those worries have sort of dissipated.
No funny business with his co-host, but Regis still managed to create a whole lot of funny.
Oh my gosh. One of my favorites was we were the first ones to put on those sumo wrestling outfits. And I screamed.
Where does the tweet come? I mean, the distance.
The distance?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
You know, the space.
Spacebar!
Regis's last live co-host was Kelly Ripa, who landed the role when she was a soap star, working across the street from the live set. You get your first job hosting in television, sitting next to Regis Philbin. What did you learn from Regis over the years?
I think my biggest takeaway from the 11 years that I shared with him was that you have to be yourself. You cannot be one person on camera and a different person once the audience is gone. You have to be who you are. And no matter what, you don't let your partner fail. And he never let me fail.
You had 2 of your 3 children while you were on the show sitting next to Regis. This amazing footage of Regis babysitting your kids. When you watch that footage back, what goes through your mind?
I got particularly emotional when we saw those clips. There was a moment where Regis is brushing Lola's teeth and she's staring at him. And he said, "You're a genteel little lady."
No, you're a genteel little woman, you understand?
And it was the way he spoke to her very softly. And I was like, that's the father of daughters.
What did you do last night? I know you bathed the kids, you went to bed. That's nice.
The Halloween show.
Next, a Bronx cheer. Back where his showbiz dreams began, he wasn't batting 1,000 then.
He did it!
Coming up. We continue with Regis Philbin, the Morning Maestro.
It was an unlikely and late rise to stardom for Regis Philbin, and in 2011, he took Katie Couric back to where it all started.
Regis is back! It's me, Regis. Make sure Regis is in focus. Yes, it's good to see Regis again.
You know what they say.
Hi, honey, how you doing?
You can take the boy out of the Bronx, but...
Hi, baby, how are you? How are things on Kruger Avenue? Do you miss me at all? Yes.
Around here...
God bless, man.
Regis is royalty.
Okay. This is now Regis Philbin Avenue. That's Regis Philbin. Cool? Look at that. I love that guy.
And everywhere we went...
Hey, how you doing?
Everyone loved seeing Regis.
Nice puppy.
Well, almost everyone.
Hi, baby. How are you? Want to play ball? Oh, yeah.
He was raised on Kruger Avenue during the Depression, on the bottom floor of a 2-family home.
The house used to be right here.
Oh.
And here was where Regis sat in his baby carriage.
Really?
Take a look. Hey, Regis. Isn't he
Look
cute?
at that cute
He's
little
adorable,
baby.
that Regis.
So they paved Paradise and they put up the parking lot, huh?
Honest to God.
Regis says neither his dad, a first-generation Irish-American and Marine, nor his mom, an Italian-American full-time housewife, had any inkling of their son's guilty pleasure.
I was afraid to tell them that I used to stay in this house, 6 years old, tune in WNEW, which was the key radio station in New York City, and every night at 9:30, Bing Crosby would have a half hour of songs. I thought he was my friend after a while, and we had not a date, but it was time to spend 30 minutes with Bing every bloody night.
What were some of the songs?
Every time it rains, it rains. If you listen to the words, pennies from heaven, don't you know each cloud contains pennies from heaven.
It wasn't until years later, on graduation day at his beloved Notre Dame, that Regis finally fessed up to his showbiz dream.
And I said, come on, Mom, I'm going to tell you now exactly what I'm going to do. And they were all excited. So we walked to the music hall, opened the door, and I sang Painters from Heaven. And as I was singing, I could see my sainted mother, her eyes with tears in them.
But not tears of joy.
And no tears of joy. And my father, a tough Irish guy who was a boxer, was a Marine, I could see that he wanted to punch me. I could see these things.
But back in the Bronx at Mac's Candy Store, he was a hit.
Dean Martin, Guy Mitchell, he did them all.
And inseparable from childhood friends Ed the Tank Treratola and Tom Freakin' Finelli.
Freakin' Finelli.
He had nicknames for everybody.
Now, what you guys have to tell me, give me the dirt. What was Regis like as a kid?
Regis? He was a sex maniac.
There wasn't much chance of that, especially since these former altar boys were always under the watchful eyes of the Sisters of Our Lady of Solace, who gazed from on high.
Sister Mary Francis.
And Regis just told me the nuns stood on the roof.
And watched, right.
They watched every move we made.
Gave us hell the next day.
Now here's where Freakin' hangs out.
When they weren't hanging out at the candy store, they were at Conti's, a bakery that's been here for 90 years.
But how could the Bronx make the best Boston cream pie?
Oh, wait till you taste it. Please.
That's delicious.
And it's where Tank confessed he had some show business aspirations of his own.
Listen, he wanted to be the singer, I wanted to be a comedian.
We could have been Martin and Lewis if you listened to me. You watch me, Katie Couric.
Martin maybe, but definitely not Mantle.
He did it! This is embarrassing in front of Katie Couric.
One more.
All right, here we go.
Nice job.
That's it for you, Katie.
Sit while you're ahead.
Yeah, you bet.
We then headed to his alma mater, Cardinal Hayes High School.
I think it had a great influence on me. And not only was it religious, but it was very disciplinarian as well.
And while he may have minded his P's and Q's, Regis admits he wasn't pulling A's and B's.
Well, I was not a great student. I really wasn't.
What, average?
Yeah, average, just average, but I wanted to be Bing Crosby. Look at this over here.
And despite his passion for singing, he told us he never once graced the Cardinal Hayes stage, which ironically was named in his honor last year.
Don't tell me I don't think about it, and I've been in that auditorium a few times now, and I've told the Father here what it was like for me to go in there, and they would have their own reviews and their plays and musical things, and here I was dying to, but I just thought, what is my talent?
What, you just didn't have enough self-confidence?
Exactly.
I'd love to see it.
This is the way it looked like when I was a student. Go ahead, Bill.
The entire graduating class of 2012 decided to surprise their famous alum. Regis established a scholarship program here, making it possible for 5 students to attend Cardinal Hayes every year.
I just wanted to personally thank you for the help the scholarship that you had given my parents and myself. It has helped us significantly, and I just want to thank you for everything that you have done for me, for other students, and for the school in general. Thank you.
One thing that I'd like to pass on to all of you is what I told Katie outside, that how sorry I am that I didn't participate in something that I wanted to be a part of. Could have learned it here. And if any of you have any of those dreams, and you're doubtful that you have the ability or the talent to fulfill that dream, you know, don't be frightened by it. Just dive in. So it thrills me to come back here. It thrills me to see all of you guys. I'm very proud of you, believe it or not. And pursue your dream. I know that's an old hackneyed saying in my business, but whatever you want to be, you're good enough to be. And you know why? Because you're a Hayes man. Thanks, guys.
Now that's a Bronx cheer.
Thank you, buddy. Hey, how you doing?
Next.
The next clip I put in the category of get it while you can.
We're going to the screening room.
No, you kiss me over here.
Ah!
The stories behind some of his favorite TV memories and yours.
Next!
When we return. Once again, Amy Robach.
It's Live with Regis and Kelly.
In 28 years, there have been snakes.
I'm not kidding, it's hurting my arm!
And shots.
Don't look at him!
The Macarena and milking. Pies and pedicures.
Not too close!
Stop it! You're making me nervous!
With thousands of hours of merriment and just plain mayhem.
I just want to see!
Selecting some favorite moments is no easy task.
Isn't this nice?
But with a little popcorn, Katie Couric was up for the challenge.
Do I see popcorn?
Yep, popcorn.
Uh-huh.
We're going to take a little trip down memory lane here, Regis.
No, I hate memory lane.
No. We put together some clips from, I think, some of your favorite moments.
Okay.
One of them is that time you convinced Johnny Carson to give you a tour of the Tonight Show set.
A rare appearance for Johnny anywhere other than the Tonight Show.
Well, let's see. Let's take a look at this tour because it's very sweet.
I'm glad you picked this one. I think it's a great moment for me. Hi, Johnny. Johnny, it's me, Regis.
You've been reduced to this.
Sure, you want to see Johnny Star? Come on. Got Johnny here, the king.
Boy, is this nice. And then you get the, sometimes you get the pencil.
Don't touch anything, Regis.
No. There's the clock right there.
Okay, Regis, time's up.
We just seemed to hit it off just so well.
You had a little bromance with Johnny Carson.
He was one of the idols of our time.
Now we have a clip of your grandson, William Xavier, his first visit to the set of Live. This was in 2008.
Okay, you asked for him, and now here he
nice
comes.
Pants.
Parents, Mr. Why am I wearing red pants? Here's Mr. Trouble, William Xavier. Oh my God, look at him. Let's see how much William Xavier looks like his grandfather. Here we go.
Most grandparents have their little brag book with their photos of their grandkids, and you get to tell millions of people about your grandkid.
I don't want to make a pest out of myself.
I think people feel like you're a member of their family, don't you think?
I hope so. That's what the show really is all about.
Now, this was your first show after you'd gotten triple bypass surgery.
Yes.
And Dave came on. It was very funny.
Look, Regis, don't be a hero. If you need to lie down, Kelly and I, we can finish up here. This is good. A couple of heart patients. This isn't a TV show. This is a recovery room, ladies and gentlemen. As long as I've known Regis, he's always said yes. He's always been a friend. He's always helped when we needed him. He's always gone above and beyond. And I've always felt like the balance was completely out of whack.
After your bypass, did you suffer from depression at all? Because a lot of people do.
It gave me pause to think, you know, you're not indestructible and you're not going to be around forever. Yeah, you're very thankful that you went through it and it worked out.
Now we've got some of my favorite clips, Regis.
Uh-oh.
And one thing I always admired about you was that you were always on the cutting edge of the latest technology. You helped introduce people to new gizmos
See, I don't know
and
if you're
gadgets.
kidding or not.
And let's take a look.
Now there is a revolution in communications industry. Now you can send a card, a newspaper, a whole book on a fax machine for the price of a telephone call.
Rich, they've been around for a long time now. Why are you just now getting excited about fax machines?
Let me ask you something. How many people here heard about fax machines before this show?
You're embarrassing. How embarrassing.
You did not! You're just doing that to aggravate me!
You have a cell phone at least?
Yeah, but I never use it. I don't
Really?
even know what the number is.
Really?
Yeah.
But you use a computer, right, Regis?
No.
No?
No.
Really?
No. I don't.
Wow.
I hate it. You got to sit there and type something out on a computer. It's ridiculous. It really is, and you know it.
One thing I noticed as I took my little trip down your memory lane.
My memory lane.
You like to show off the bod, Regis.
Oh, no, I don't really. What is it? What are we watching here? I'm taking off my pants now? Oh, God. With the long
Anything
socks.
for a laugh,
With
right,
the long
Regis?
socks. And still got the pants on my shoes. Somebody help Regis. Oh, my God. Stop with that.
Can you believe you did this? Oh, and just recently, Regis.
Oh, this is with Snoozy, whatever her name is.
Snooky.
And she's saying, take your shirt off.
Look at you.
Oh, for God. See what age does to you?
I think you look pretty darn
Oh,
good.
my.
You are the big 8-0, Regis, and look at you.
Anyway.
Next! Next!
All right, now, the next clip I put in the category of get it while you can.
Uh-oh. God only knows what this is. No, you kiss me over here. Oh, this is my old trick. Come on, Alicia.
You won't go to jail,
We'll
will you?
make him real jealous. We'll make him real jealous. Regis' big thrill.
You and Alicia Keys, Regis.
They all come sooner or later to Regis.
Now we have a moment. The last big goodbye on Live was when Kathy Lee left.
Oh, yeah.
And this is quite touching, I think.
Little song I wanted to sing to you that kind of sums up my feelings and all of our feelings about you. Thanks for the memory. You've been a lifelong pal, boosted my morale, got me enjoy a hefty discount, cruising carnival. The room was small. Thanks for the memory of all the fun and tears through all the years and years. Our hosts chat every day. Now you're on your way. Forget it all, but please recall I love you so much.
So sweet.
It was
Next scene.
Next, from one millionaire maestro to another,
The Return of the King.
Regis's last TV interview with Jimmy Kimmel.
Regis, before we wrap it up, I have a question for $25,000.
Yeah.
Some final answers when we return.
When Regis Philbin became the host of the first U.S. game show with the $1 million top prize, his presence helped launch a phenomenon.
He just won $1 million!
And just this past March, in what would be his final television interview, he spoke to the host of the brand new version of the show and devoted fan, Jimmy Kimmel.
Here he comes. I was the one who did this years ago.
I remember.
You don't remember.
I do.
The King has returned. The Return of the King.
How are you?
How are you?
Good to see
Gosh, you look fantastic.
So do you.
How are you doing?
I wish I had that.
Yeah, I could put one on you.
Oh, I bet you can.
Shall we take a look at the set? Let's do it.
Okay.
Well, Regis Philbin,
Look at this.
this is it.
They did it very well.
They did a nice job
Nice
with
job,
it.
yeah.
It would make for a beautiful living room, I think, for, for someone. We've got the panels, chairs, we've got the questions.
Wow.
We've got the dollar signs. You've even still got the shiny tie, which makes me feel good.
That's right.
Yeah.
And look up there. That's a. Oh, and here too.
Yeah. You want to go sit? Shall we have a little chat? You look good, Regis. You're very trim.
Now, which one is you?
I think I'm over there and you're right here.
All
Mark. I'm very happy to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know. It's been actually years.
You don't call me anymore.
Well.
That tie is kind. Is that one of the classic Regis ties? Can we look at the back and see what's going on there?
Yeah, here you go.
Oh, that says.
What is it?
I think it says Mario Cuomo on it. No, that is not a Regis tie. Yeah. So I imagine you must have a closet full of those.
I do. I really do.
Can I have one of them?
You're kidding.
Will you send me one?
I will.
Okay, good.
I will.
All right. And then I'll send you a shoe or something.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I could use that.
You built this house. This is.
I'm looking around and I'm seeing a lot of people and a lot of things that are here now.
It's like being inside a slot machine. Regis, no one will ever be better at doing this than you. No one, never.
Didn't seem too sure about that one, but you nailed it. Now that's funny. Come on.
And I'm not just being false humble by saying that. It's true.
Really?
You're the best. And that's why people love this show. I mean, it's a great game, but Regis is the reason. You really were such a great host of this show, thinking on your feet, making people feel comfortable, and really, more than anything, recognizing that this could be a life-changing experience for a lot of these people. Did you ever feel the gravity of that? Somebody coming in and winning or losing?
Well, yes, I did.
A huge amount of money?
A lot of them did that, too.
Yeah.
This is 21 years ago.
Right, that's a long time ago.
I loved doing the show. Final answer? Final answer? Is that your final answer?
When you're at a restaurant, or do they ask you if that's your final answer when you order something?
Once in a while.
Yeah.
But that's gotten older. You know, nobody says that anymore.
People don't say it anymore. We love you, Regis.
You're a great guy.
You too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, a legend on his legacy.
What I'll miss most after all these years is...
When we come back.
In 2011, on the day before Regis's last morning co-hosting live, Katie Couric gave the preeminent TV host a little pop quiz.
So, Regis, the personnel department at the network asked me to conduct your exit interview. So let's get started, shall we?
My exit interview, okay.
To what extent do you agree or disagree with each of the following? 1, I had a clear understanding of my roles and responsibilities.
I agree with that.
I had the opportunity to enhance my job skills.
Well, of course, after 28 years, I think I did it a little better than before.
Finish these sentences. I'm the happiest when
When I'm entertaining people.
I'm the most miserable when
Oh my gosh. When I feel like I haven't been successful in something I've undertaken. I really feel badly about it.
What worries me the most is...
Maybe having spent too much time working and not enough time enjoying life.
I hope to be remembered most for...
17,000 hours in front of a television camera? Is that enough for you?
That works.
The definition of maestro is a master of an art. And Regis Philbin made his unique brand of television an art form all its own.
It's just the thought of you.
Tell me what you think Regis's legacy will be.
Oh, it's hard. It's hard to measure Regis's legacy because I still think of him as still here. I think that Regis's legacy is his contribution to humanity in terms of it's just okay to be yourself. And also, I think his love of people will also be his legacy. He just loved people, and he just wanted to be a part of it. He wanted to be a part of something, and he never let any of it go to his head. So I guess his ultimate legacy is his humility.
What I'll miss most after all these years is...
Oh, the excitement of walking out, you know, hearing some applause and knowing that the audience is there and they're on your side and they want to be entertained and you can do that for them. It's nice to know.
The very thought of you,
Tonight, a live breaking news special edition of 2020.
The babies are just growing up. They can still get sick. And they're really important to me. I just don't want anything to happen to them.
It came back positive. Yeah, and it sucks.
From the very top.
It's bad. It's bad.
To those struggling at home.
We need one more breath.
With the day-to-day reality.
For the time being, this is the center of the universe.
Adjusting to the new normal as cities and entire countries go on lockdown. Quarantined at home and waiting for results.
I don't know when I'm going to be able to leave my house. I don't know if I've infected a lot of people.
The very latest on testing.
Bottom line, how soon can you get a test?
Literally now, as we speak. We are told there will be millions of tests over a period of between now and the next few weeks.
And if you're infected, step-by-step guidance on what to do. Our experts live in the studio answering your questions. Pandemic, what you need to know. Here's David Muir.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this special live 2020 Pandemic, What You Need to Know. And as we come on the air tonight, much of America shutting down. Late today, President Trump issuing new nationwide guidelines for Americans across this country in the fight against the coronavirus. The outbreak spreading across the U.S. More than 1,300 new cases in just the last 24 hours, and that's without testing fully up to speed. In total, more than 4,600 cases in 49 states, at least 82 deaths. Late today, President Trump acknowledging the coronavirus is not under control, urging Americans not to gather in groups larger than 10 and to avoid restaurants and bars. And he said the U.S. could be dealing with this right into the summer. Tonight, a major lockdown has been declared in the San Francisco area. Nearly 7 million people in several California counties have been ordered to shelter in place, to stay at home for weeks. And the stock market freefall, even after action by the Fed in a rare Sunday move, the Dow halted shortly after opening today, emergency triggers kicking in, and by day's end, dropping nearly 3,000 points, its worst point loss ever. Our chief medical editor, Dr. Jen Ashton, and a team of doctors are right here tonight taking your questions on Twitter. Use the hashtag AskABC2020, and we'll be checking in with the entire team all night. But we're going to begin tonight with the remarkable changes occurring at a rapid pace across this country, a reset of American life. I'm sure you saw it for yourself this weekend. You walk into a grocery store somewhat expecting it, but it's still a stunning sight to see. The empty shelves, millions of families worried about what's coming, trying to stock up. Parents trying to find childcare with schools closing in at least 35 states. And there's also the ongoing struggle for those who fear they have the coronavirus or have been exposed to it. Where and how do they get tested? How quickly will they get the results? Is what we're seeing in Italy and in Europe about to play out right here in the U.S.? I'll ask Dr. Anthony Fauci of the National Institutes of Health, the nation's top infectious disease expert, that very question in just a moment. But first tonight, the new guidelines from President Trump late today. Tonight, America shutting down. Late today, President Trump issuing new nationwide guidelines for the next 15 days.
We'd much rather be ahead of the curve than behind it.
The president's task force now urging everyone to avoid gatherings of 10 or more people, to avoid restaurants and bars, discretionary travel, encouraging older people and those with underlying conditions to stay home. The administration also telling people not to visit nursing homes and recommending bars and restaurants close in states with community spread. Reporters at the White House today were greeted with signs telling them to sit separate from one another. Their temperatures taken before they entered the White House briefing room. The podium cleaned right afterward.
If everyone makes this change or these critical changes and sacrifices now, we will rally together as one nation and we will defeat the virus.
You're not saying it's under control, right?
I'm not referring to it, meaning if you're talking about the virus, no, that's not under control for any place in the world.
And late today, the president warning that the crisis could stretch deep into the summer.
People are talking about July, August, something like that. So it could be right in that period of time where it washes through. Other people don't like that term, but where it washes through.
Tonight, with cases across the country climbing, several counties in the San Francisco Bay Area issuing a sweeping shelter-in-place order to stay home for nearly 7 million Americans. Residents told to only leave their homes for food, medicine, and exercise. And California's governor tonight urging home isolation for all adults over the age of 65.
Most important thing, again, is to protect the most vulnerable.
More than a dozen states closing bars and restaurants except for takeout and delivery, including New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey, who are also closing gyms, movie theaters, casinos, starting tonight. Across this country, at least 35 states now closing public schools, forcing more than 35 million school children to stay home.
Creates a lot of hardship for people, but it's the right choice.
And we have all seen it for ourselves across this country. The empty shelves from Omaha, Nebraska, to the long lines at Costco's from Illinois to Los Angeles.
Thousands of people are rushing to trying to get into the Costco here in the
lines snaking around the building before dawn. Nationwide, stores running out of basic items like toilet paper and water. And tonight, this message from the Stop & Shop grocery chain announcing new early shopping hours for customers 60 and older. And despite major new action by the Fed on Sunday to cut interest rates to near zero, the Dow halted just seconds into trading today, closing down nearly 3,000 points. All of this as some of America's hospitals and healthcare workers sound the alarm, reporting spikes in incoming patients amid a shortage of critical protective gear, setting up tents outside emergency rooms. And another critical matter that remains tonight, the testing. Who can get a test, where, and how quickly will they get the results? Workers on the front line saying there may be more tests, but we need protective gear. And President Trump late today was asked about his own test he took over the weekend.
Not something I want to do every day, I can tell you that. It's, it's a little bit of good doctors in the White House, but it's a test. It's a medical test. Nothing pleasant about it.
The White House saying the president tested negative for the virus. Tonight, the president of France declaring Europe is at war with coronavirus. The UK taking wartime measures, asking companies like Ford and Rolls-Royce to manufacture vital equipment like ventilators. And British actor Idris Elba posting this message, saying he has tested positive for coronavirus.
This is serious, Now's the time to really think about social distancing, washing your hands.
He says he feels okay and is now in self-isolation with his wife, who hasn't yet been tested. And here in the U.S., an NBA player with the Utah Jazz, Donovan Mitchell, and his own message. He is isolated after testing positive for coronavirus too, and his case highlights the need for more testing.
I keep making the joke when people ask me. I said, if you were to tell me I'm not playing a 7-game series tomorrow, I'd be ready to lace up.
That's really something. Donovan Mitchell testing positive, but saying he has no symptoms, which of course begs the question, how many Americans have this without even knowing, and when will the testing finally be up to speed? Are healthcare workers on the front lines ready? Do they have the protective gear they need? Are there enough ventilators in this country? I spoke with Dr. Anthony Fauci of the National Institutes of Health, the nation's top expert on infectious diseases, just before we came on the air tonight. Dr. Fauci, thank you for joining us here tonight. You have been sounding the alarm for weeks now, and we heard the president late today issue those new guidelines, no restaurants, no bars. We heard the president acknowledge coronavirus is bad, is not under control. Can you tell the American people watching tonight who have seen what's happening in Italy and elsewhere as best you can, what we're about to see here in the U.S.?
Well, what we're about to see, David, is that things are definitely going to get worse before they get better. If you look at the pattern of the outbreak as it hit different countries and different cities within countries, and I talk specifically about China, about South Korea, and most recently Italy, what happens is that you putter along with cases, a few, and then you reach a point of inflection where it takes off. And if you look back at the history of outbreaks, you get this big, big peak, and then it starts to come down if you leave the virus to its own devices without trying to interfere with it. We have the opportunity now, even though we will still continue to see an acceleration of cases, we have the opportunity to blunt that peak and essentially make it more of a mound, which would mean less sick people and less death. But that's not going to happen spontaneously.
Dr. Fauci, I have to ask you what viewers have been asking us, and they commonly ask about the tests in this country. We've heard promises from the administration of 1 million coronavirus tests, then the promise of 4 million tests. You've already called it a failing in your words, so I don't want to go over it all over again how it began, but we're now weeks into this. So bottom line tonight, if you're an American who meets the criteria on the CDC guidance, we've been saying if you have a fever of 100.4 or more to call your doctor. But bottom line, how soon can you get a test if you need one, and how soon will you get the results back?
Well, the situation has really changed dramatically, David. Again, we admit, and I have been publicly saying that a little bit ago it wasn't really adequate to meet the needs. Right now, there has been a major embracing of the private sector, which is, calling upon the forces of what America does best, private industry, and get those companies and those labs involved. And we are told in discussions with the CEOs of those labs and with the state and other government that the tests that are going out there literally now, as we speak, tomorrow, the next day, the next week, are going to take that riveting up till you get to the point where there will be millions of tests per several weeks over a period of between now and the next few weeks.
Well, Dr.
Fauci, I tend to,
you speak of the CEOs there, and we certainly hope that that's true, but we heard from healthcare workers on the ground just today who said, we have the test, but we don't have the protective gear. And we heard from workers in some of these labs who say they're also concerned that they don't have the gear that they need, the protective gear, to actually process these tests.
That's a very good point, David, and I would have gotten to that, but you're right, and I appreciate you're bringing it up. It's not just the test, it's how you can actually deliver them. And the people who are involved now in making this happen. But when you start something up, David, it doesn't go from nothing to 100% effective right away. What we're going to start seeing is that there will always be people who are not getting the test or the results exactly when they want it. But that's going to be changing rapidly over the days and weeks.
When Americans see what they have seen with these tests, they're going to be concerned about equipment, supplies, the adequate number of healthcare workers on the front line. We heard what the president told the nation's governors today, that don't wait for the federal government, for the White House on ventilators. Go get them on your own. Do we have enough ventilators in this country for what's coming?
Well, it depends on what you mean, David, by what's coming. There are about 12,700 ventilators in the Strategic National Stockpile and the ability to backfill with several thousand. I mean, if you have a situation like they have in Italy, I don't think any country or any preparation in the world will be able to be adequate to have the equipment that you need. What we're trying to do, apropos of what I just told you a few moments ago, is to blunt that response, that we'd be able to handle it with the equipment we have. But when you're dealing with a fluid situation like this, you're really racing against the virus, trying to get out of control as you're trying to keep it under control. The more you keep it under control, and that's where the mitigation and the containment comes in, the less you'll be in risk of running out of that vital equipment that you need.
Doctor, can you assure the American people that what they've witnessed in those images from Italy and from those hospitals won't happen here?
David, I'm always trying to be as cold and honest. I don't want to scare anybody. There's no guarantee of anything, but I can tell you we are going to try our very best with all of the resources, all of the force, all of our might to make sure that doesn't happen. But, David, it is going to require the cooperation of the American people, because the reason why we made the announcement this evening about don't go to bars, don't go to restaurants. If you're an elderly person, shelter in, stay at home, don't go out.
Yeah, it's going to take every community in this country. I wanted to ask you before you go about the reports out of France over the weekend of the hundreds in critical condition, potentially. They reported half could be under 60. What does that tell you? And perhaps more importantly, what do you know right now about who has this right now in the U.S., what the demographics are? What are you seeing in Americans right now?
Well, it's not, the number in America is still low, but we're seeing the patterns that we saw in China and that we saw in South Korea, which is that if you look at the people who get into trouble, they are overwhelmingly weighted towards individuals who are elderly and individuals who have underlying conditions that compromise their ability to fight the infection, like heart disease and lung disease. You will always see outliers of individuals who are otherwise young and well, who wind up getting into trouble, getting seriously ill, and even dying. I'm very interested in, and we want to follow up on those reports from France that say that there are several people. When I heard that, I called up some of my colleagues, some of whom I trained years ago in my own group in Italy, and I said, I'm hearing this about France. What are you seeing in Italy? And he admitted, we are seeing a few people, a minor proportion, but they certainly are there, of younger people in their 40s and 50s who are getting seriously ill. But he confirmed that the overwhelming majority of the people who get into trouble, the average age of the people who really get sick and die is 80-something years old.
But of course, we all just want to make sure that there isn't a false sense of security out there as well, which I'm sure you share that concern.
David, let me be on the record and be very, very vocal about this. We don't have a false sense of security about anything. We take everything seriously. Yes, of course, when you look at the numbers, younger people do much, much, much better. The overwhelming majority of them do well. When we start hearing reports of people who are 40s and 50s and 60s who are getting into trouble, you have to pay attention to that and find out, A, is it real? and it is real, why is it happening when we didn't see it in other countries? So nothing is taken for granted, no false sense of security.
Dr. Fauci, thanks so much for being here tonight. We appreciate the work you're doing.
Yeah, good to be with you, David.
So let's take this over to Dr. Jen Ashton now and the medical team, who, by the way, will be taking your questions as we're on the air here tonight. But Dr. Jen, first the news that Dr. Fauci just made there. We talked to him about the headline from France that of the hundreds of patients in critical condition, there were reports that about half of them potentially could be 60 or younger.
Right.
And even Dr. Fauci said, I got on the phone, I wanted to know more about that.
Right. And that's why it's so important for us to test more and to release our clinical data from the United States patients. We need to know what our average age is here, how many are serious, how many are critical, what pre-existing conditions they had. We don't have that data out yet.
And you heard him acknowledge that again today, saying that it hasn't been adequate in this country. In fact, he said it's been inadequate to meet the needs of testing so far. But that's what's so important here. It's not just to tell an individual whether or not they have coronavirus, but it's what it could tell the medical community about where it is in the country and who's being hit the hardest.
100%. And we're expecting some early results possibly out of the Seattle cases and the rest of our U.S. cases any day now. But right now we haven't had that. And we're seeing already a burdening of our healthcare system. We need that information to help us make our decisions. Data drives decisions in medicine.
A lot of people at home have been asking us about the supplies on the front line, in particular ventilators, which we've heard a lot about. He talked about, in addition to the 62,000 we have in hospitals around the country, 12,700 that have been stockpiled. But he also acknowledged that if we were to have coronavirus hit the way it's hit in Italy, he said no amount of preparedness would be enough.
Right. And when you look at our critical surge capacity, David, it's based on space, staff, supplies, and systems. Ventilators don't run themselves. They need respiratory therapists and critical care nurses. We have a shortage of that type of personnel, but that is partially why we're hearing, as recently as a few days ago, the American College of Surgeons saying postpone all elective surgery and procedures because those things use valuable resources like ventilators and masks, and we need those now.
That's a really important point. And just to drive this home, what we heard from President Trump late today, these new guidelines to avoid restaurants and to avoid bars. A lot of people might be asking, is this a step too far? But Dr. Fauci, and I know you would say, this is exactly what we need to do, because Dr. Fauci was talking about flattening the curve again.
That's right.
So that the ventilators, the medical workers in the front lines, that our supplies can keep up. And if you can keep the number of cases lower over perhaps a longer period of time,
correct,
it gives our medical staff around this country a better chance.
100%. And Dr. Fauci himself said when you're trying to contain or respond to an infectious disease outbreak, you're always behind. So we need to take those aggressive steps now.
All right, covering the late news of the night, we're going to answer everyone's questions at home, so keep them coming. There's still much more ahead. On the special live edition of 2020, we're going to hear from Americans who have coronavirus tonight. So many have been wondering, what are the symptoms? How many are walking around asymptomatic? We're also going to take you inside the lab tonight, one of those private labs, to show you the equipment capable of processing 1,000 samples a day. But do workers conducting the tests, do workers then processing the samples have the protective gear they need? We'll get some answers on that. And just in from France tonight, the French president now saying we are at war. The alarming headlines about those younger than 60, we'll dig into that a little more tonight. And what does that tell us? In Italy, at least 349 deaths in just the last 24 hours alone. And this number that got our attention as well. In Italy, they have more hospital beds, more doctors per capita per person than we have here in the U.S. So again, is America ready? We're back in a moment. Next tonight, here's so many questions about testing in the U.S. News that private labs are now joining the fight. Tonight, we're going to take you inside one, but how many kits are available and how quickly will they now get this done? Here's ABC's Matt Gutman.
Yeah, how have you been feeling?
My head's been hurting, but that's all. I've been pretty good besides that.
It's become an all too familiar story. 8-year-old Adele Tyson of Westchester, New York, came down with coronavirus-like symptoms last week. So her mother, Vita, called the health department hotline to get her tested.
I called 8 different numbers, and I spoke with 8 different people. And they meant well. And then they referred me back to the original number.
Vita gave up, but then she fell ill herself. And the local ER tested her on Tuesday. 6 days later, still no results.
I don't know when I'm going to be able to leave my house. I don't know if I've infected a lot of people. And I can't tell anyone anything because I don't know.
Testing numbers nationwide are still lagging. New York has conducted roughly 7,000 tests since the outbreak. North Carolina's public labs have only done about 300. However, in South Korea, where the number of cases have now flattened, over 275,000 tests have been conducted. They've even now created phone booth-type testing sites. But back home, health workers need to be in full protective gear to administer the tests. In some cases, they're proving scarce.
So the current test that's been available up to this point has been very manual or labor intensive. So that has hindered how quickly we can turn results around and the volume of tests that can be done.
But this weekend, we may have turned a corner.
The FDA approved a new test for the virus. We did this within hours after receiving the application from Roche.
Roche Molecular Solutions and another private biotech company, Thermo Fisher, received emergency FDA authorization for new tests. Breakthroughs because of the speed. Patients no longer have to wait for days for results, now just 3.5 hours.
What we can now expect is that we're going to provide 400,000 tests in the coming days. So that will mean that we will make available about 1.5 million tests every month.
How did Roche pull it off?
The challenge was the timeline. Could we do it in 6 to 7 weeks as we were being asked to do?
We did something that usually takes 12 to 18 months.
So we had to reinvent how we did things.
With the potential to be a COVID-19 game changer, the Roche factory went into overdrive. With the thumbs up from the FDA around midnight on Friday, the tests rolled out over the weekend. This New Jersey shipping team loading trucks, heading out to over 30 labs across the country. And today in Chicago, Kathleen Beavis of the University of Chicago put the new test through one of its first runs this afternoon.
So they're literally dropping in as we speak. You're getting specimens as we speak.
Yes, we are.
The results?
5 positives out of 43. Yes. Again, this all goes to helping us track where the existing cases are and where we might have higher pockets of illness in the Chicago area.
Many of these experts have skin in the game. Dr. Valsamakis' husband is already suffering from heart trouble.
He's in the highest risk category group of people to die from this infection. This is personal. I want to protect him.
So many questions about testing coming into the team. So let's get back to Dr. Jen. And someone wrote, actually it was Courtney, she said, please ask Dr. Ashton, first of all, how long can one be a carrier of COVID-19 before actually showing symptoms? Do we even know the answer to that?
We don't know, David. We know the average incubation, based on a published study that just came out last week, was 5.2 days. By 11 days, 97% of people will convert to positive, but we really don't know what that range is. We still need to test more people.
And that's just a question before showing symptoms. There are still many who are asymptomatic.
Right.
We heard that from Donovan Mitchell, the NBA player for the Utah Jazz, who said he tested positive, not feeling any symptoms. And there was a question from Tim who wrote in, if asymptomatic or no symptoms, shouldn't we still be tested if we are contagious to others?
Well, the long-term answer is yes. We need to test a lot of asymptomatic people, but we're not there yet. So right now it's what's considered a tier 3 level, an asymptomatic person in the community who maybe was just exposed to a confirmed case. Right now, the real answer is self-quarantine, because the ability to test asymptomatic people just is not there yet.
Because there would be a crush of people then trying to get tested, and we already have seen what's happened in our country with the testing process so far. So again, if you have symptoms, that fever of 100.4 or above, call your doctor?
In some cases, absolutely, if you have a medical condition. But remember, some people don't have a high fever with this. So again, that's why we need to test a lot more people.
And if you don't have the fever, but you have some of the other symptoms, what are they to look out for, Jen?
Body aches, extreme fatigue, severe headache, and dry cough. If you have a healthcare provider, you want to call that person. If not, as we heard, try calling the Department of Health, but it might take a while to get through.
It might take a while, so call your healthcare provider. Don't just show up, because otherwise you risk, if you don't have it, perhaps coming into contact with somebody who does.
Absolutely.
All right, a lot more to come, Jen. Thank you very much. And when we come back here tonight, what we're seeing right now in Europe, the epicenter of this global outbreak, what we can learn from what we're seeing there as well. The French president tonight saying we are at war. Italy's death toll soaring once again, at least 349 deaths in just one day. Because of the lockdown, there can be no funerals in Italy. And what we've learned tonight about a bishop who met in recent days with Pope Francis, who has now tested positive, that bishop. Dr. Jen answering your questions. Keep them coming tonight. Use the hashtag AskABC2020. We're going to turn next tonight on this Live 2020 to Europe, to Italy, because health officials in this country are studying what they're seeing there, what they're seeing in France. We heard that from Dr. Fauci earlier. In Italy, in fact, they have more doctors and more hospital beds per capita than what we have even right here in the U.S. So we'll drill down on that as well. And tonight, the Vatican now revealing a bishop who recently met with the Pope has now tested positive. Tonight, at least 349 deaths reported in just the last 24 hours in Italy alone. The images are haunting. You've seen them. France, Spain, and Germany now locking down their countries. And ABC's James Longman tonight from London.
Italy has now had nearly 28,000 cases, with more than 2,100 deaths. And as the toll surges across the continent, Europe is now the epicenter of the COVID-19 crisis.
More cases are now being reported every day than were reported in China at the highest of its epidemic.
And now Italy's health service, one of the best in the world, is overwhelmed.
Now we are starting to discharge many patients, and this is very good, but as soon as we discharge a patient, we receive another one.
New admissions seen in tents outside hospitals to stop the spread inside. Thousands now fighting for their lives and their dignity.
We are almost at the same level as an emergency ward,
says nurse Alberto Poinelli at this tent hospital in Brescia. He says the main issue is the fear in patients who test positive, having to calm them, reassure them, and give them a plan they can trust. There can be no funerals in Italy, only names in the paper. Pages and pages of obituaries for those claimed by corona. The dead laid to rest unaccompanied, their mourning families, some of them millions, still stuck at home. But Italy may have acted too late, and perhaps not strongly enough at first. South Korea was hit around the same time, but has recorded just 75 deaths. Europe holds its breath to avoid infection, today issuing a 30-day ban on all non-essential travel to the EU. The European effort, though, is not coordinated. But America's closest ally, Britain, slower than others, only today advising people to stay home.
We need people to start working from home where they possibly can.
World Health Organization advice is more direct.
Not quarantine alone, not social distancing alone, do it all.
Back in Italy, Easter services disrupted. The Pope's solo vigil offering up prayers on behalf of millions. And every night, tributes are laid down for their frontline heroes.
We lit up candles every night. We want to pay an invisible but strong homage to all the doctors and nurses that are constantly working to help us here.
Just incredible images from overseas, and we're going to continue to follow that and bring back in Dr. Jen Ashton, who's with us. And we were talking about this on World News Tonight, just the numbers when you compare with Italy. And take a look at these numbers at home, because in Italy, they actually have more doctors per person there than we have here in the U.S. 4 per 1,000 in Italy versus 2.6 per 1,000 here at home. Then when it comes to hospital beds, they have more hospital beds per capita than we do, 34 for every 10,000 people there. Here in the U.S., we have about 29 beds per 10,000 people. And Jen, authorities have been saying that when it comes to what you're seeing in Italy and what you're seeing in France, that they're about 2 weeks ahead of the wave that we'll see here. So what does that tell you?
Well, that's exactly why you're hearing Dr. Fauci say, we are behind. We have to take aggressive steps now so that down the road someone can say we've done too much. Really, time is of the essence when you're dealing with a virus like this. The other interesting thing, David, about Italy in particular, they have a different culture and society and style of living than we do. They tend to have multi-generations living together with a lot of contact, and they tend to have an older population, and I think that's why you're seeing some of the severity there.
Yeah, the cultural norms. It's just heartbreaking when you hear that they can't have funerals. They're just doing announcements in the newspaper there because they're in the throes of such a horrible, horrible moment in their nation's history. I want to bring in Dr. Vinayak Kumar, because what many viewers at home don't realize is that we have a medical team that helps to support Dr. Jen on the air every single day here. And one of the things that we saw from over the weekend, when you hear that we're 2 weeks behind what we're seeing in France and Italy, is the social distancing and the lack thereof. We saw a lot of people out celebrating, of course, St. Patrick's, which I have done before, but not this weekend because of the guidelines that have been put out there. And also the beaches, for example, for spring break, they've now closed down some of those beaches. But would that have made a difference if we were able to get the word out and tell people, really, we have something coming? We're just 2 weeks behind what we're seeing in Europe.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The key thing to keep in mind is that a lot of these young folks, they might think themselves as invulnerable, but as we talked about earlier, these guys can totally be asymptomatic. So you might be very close to a person who's asymptomatic and spread the disease amongst the youth. And more importantly, this is a public health concern. So those youth can actually infect the elderly, causing higher mortality rates.
Dr. Kumar, that's an excellent point. Think about our older generation. We have to protect them at the same time. And Jen, do we have any idea, because we've seen this question on Twitter as well, how many people one person can infect, what the data tells us so far?
We don't, but we know that the doubling time or the transmission dynamics of this is significant, and that basically every 7 days the number of cases doubles. So that is, again, why the clock is ticking, and these aggressive social distancing measures need to be put into action right now.
Which is why Dr. Fauci said we're in a race against the virus here in the U.S. All right, Jen, thanks. When we come back here tonight, the new normal in America, really dramatic, life-changing events. We've all witnessed it just over one weekend alone. We're with the wage earners now, with no idea where their next paycheck will come from. We're also hearing from patients living in quarantine, those with confirmed cases and those waiting for their results, how life has changed in an instant for them. Our Live 2020 continues in a moment. There are more than 4,600 known cases of coronavirus here in the U.S. Of course, authorities believe that number could be vastly higher given the slow testing. Tonight, we're hearing from patients living through it, those with confirmed cases, those awaiting test results, and of course, those under self-quarantine because they or a family member might have been exposed to it. Our own Deborah Roberts is now in isolation with her husband, Al Roker, after a colleague of his tested positive. So Al and Deb are staying home just to be sure, not unlike so many already in this country.
My name is Rich.
Hi, my name is Lisa Murr.
James Kyle.
People all over the country are living with the COVID-19 diagnosis.
I'm from Crested Butte, Colorado.
And I am a New York City resident.
I too live in Manhattan, and after recently learning that my husband was exposed to somebody who tested positive for COVID-19, we're now self-isolating to be cautious and make sure we don't somehow contribute to the spread of the virus.
For famously diagnosed basketball player Donovan Mitchell, his symptoms are currently mild.
I'm fine. Things are going well. Just in isolation, got a unique setup, but no fever, no symptoms as of right now.
But that wasn't the case for Lisa Merck.
I went to Hawaii on February 2nd with my husband. We did a 3-week travel trip.
Then life changed shortly after.
On February 19th, we were getting ready to come home, and I started getting just tiny little sniffle and didn't think anything of it. And then on February 20th, my back started hurting on the left side. My muscles started hurting. It felt like somebody was stabbing me with an ice pick.
My symptoms, I know a lot of people were asking, they came on as a dry cough, which led then to a fever and this extreme fatigue. I was doing my dishes and putting them in the dishwasher, and I became winded doing that, and that's something not normal.
I feel ill Sunday night. I had muscle pain, and the next day, Monday afternoon, I start to cough and have fever, a shortness of breath.
Once I got the results, though, on Saturday, the doctor basically told me there's no way to treat it. They're treating the symptoms. So if you have, shortness of breath or anything like that, go to the hospital. But other than that, really just, nurse it at home with water and rest.
March 8th, I asked my husband to take me to the emergency room because I felt horrible. I felt extremely exhausted. I felt winded. Then they did the COVID-19 test. It was positive.
To be home is rough, but I've tried to think of creative ways with friends where we FaceTime each other, we Skype, we play games online, and just remember, we gotta just look out for each other. Hope this is over soon. We're gonna make it through.
They are going to make it through, and we really all will as a community in this country. And we have to remember that Americans are staying home now, not just people waiting for test results, and you can only imagine anxiety for them, but for people staying home, Jen. And we want to bring in Dr. Jonathan Fader, clinical and performance psychologist, as well on this, because Jen, you and I have been saying we have to help people reduce the stress level as they're just sitting in their homes and taking care of their children and trying to keep life going as normal.
Sure, and I think we've all been feeling that, and I think that what helps with that is taking steps to prepare, because it gives you something productive to do, and it gives you a sense of having some control over a situation that really can seem out of control. And Dr. Fader, I have a question for you. With all of this social distancing that we're all doing now, it can feel very lonely and isolating. So how do you emotionally not distance yourself as you're physically distancing yourself?
Well, first, the most important thing is to control what we can control. As you were saying, we feel much better if we have something we can focus on. And so what I focus on with everybody I talk to about this, it's natural to be anxious. You need something. We all wash our hands, but what are we doing for our mentality? You have to have a hand wash for your mentality. So what I tell patients all the time is to have something you say to yourself to focus on what you control. We actually have an acronym, WIN, which stands for What's Important Now. And when you ask yourself that, you realize what's important now. What's important now is to focus on what I control. Do something to bring my breath in control. Or, we're talking about social distancing, but it doesn't have to be emotional distancing. Right. Reaching out, connecting to others can create more meaning and help you to really focus on what's important in your life and take your focus off of things you can't control that cause more anxiety.
I like that. Win. We'll remember that.
Exactly.
All right. Dr. Fader, thank you.
No, my pleasure.
Dr. Jen as well. When we come back, the new normal in just a moment. It is the new normal in America, a reordering of American life. Mothers and fathers now working from home. And late today, you heard the president saying for at least the next 15 days, avoid restaurants and bars to slow down the virus. And so Tamron Hall tonight on this American test.
So we're going to head out and check out a local diner here in the heart of New York City. Well, what we know is within 24 hours, diners like this one will be closed, only for takeout and delivery.
I've been in this neighborhood for 45 years. First time we'll close and possibly forever. A lot of these people have been with me, some for 35 years.
So in total, how many employees are you?
200.
200? Have they confided in you worried about rent and paying bills?
You can see fear in their eyes. You can see it. That's the worst part.
We're on our way to Garfield, New Jersey, where, like so many school districts around the country, the schools are shut down. And so many of the kids normally would get a breakfast or a lunch from school. Now, a parent or guardian has to line up to get those missed meals so that the kids can eat.
So you have a complete meal for breakfast and a complete lunch as well, complying with the USDA guidelines for nutrition.
Tell me how life is at home right now.
It's scary. The kids don't understand. Trying to explain to the kids is the biggest part. This is serious right now.
This is the new normal now.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be the new normal.
We're heading about 40 minutes to another suburb to talk with a single mother, 6 children. She's a nurse. She is facing this alone with her children. I've also, just in case they don't have lights. Hi, how are you? I'm Tamron.
Nice to meet you.
You want me to keep my mask on, or how do you feel?
It don't matter.
Okay. All right, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. What is your number one concern today?
Me is right now with the schooling. I only have 2 laptops. I can't have all 5 of them in 2 laptops.
Who gets to do their homework first?
I have my own laptop. She has her
You
own.
have your laptop. Do you have your laptop?
Use my mom's.
Use your mom.
Everybody use mine.
And that's how everyone will be able to do their homework.
Basically.
What scares you most now?
Me, for me, if I was with myself, I would probably just be able to handle it on my own.
The babies are just growing up. They can still get sick. And they're really important to me. I just don't want anything to happen to them.
So much fear, and you can't forget that families live paycheck to paycheck.
Absolutely. That's why we wanted to do this story. 40% of Americans have just $400 for an emergency. So when you hear the story, you need to stock up on these things, put these things in your refrigerator. Where are you going to get the money from? And that's a part of this conversation that can't be forgotten. That's what we saw all day long today, David.
All right. Now in the hands of the Senate to help.
Absolutely.
Finally tonight here, even amid the devastating scenes playing out in Italy, they sent out word, let's all come out on our balconies and send a message of thanks. In Italy, they set a time this weekend and they all came out on their balconies to applaud doctors, nurses, and all healthcare workers on the front lines. In Rome, so many families and their appreciation. There was this image from Spain, the fitness instructor who knew so many are in quarantine, teaching from a rooftop. And here in the U.S., from California tonight, the famous comedian and actor Mel Brooks, this is his son.
Hi, Dad.
With a message about looking out for our seniors.
If I get the coronavirus, I'll probably be okay. But if I give it to him, he could give it to Carl Reiner, who could give it to Dick Van Dyke. And before I know it, I've wiped out a whole generation of comedic legends. Do your part. Don't be a spreader. Right, Dad? I'm going. Love you.
I love that. Really important message for all of us. Thank you for watching here again on this Live 2020. Our coverage of the coronavirus continues later tonight on Nightline and, of course, first thing in the morning on GMA. And I'll see you all this week on World News Tonight. Dr. Jen and the entire medical unit, I thank you, too. We'll do this again. Good night.
December 31st, the initial announcement from WHO. There was a novel coronavirus found in Wuhan.
There appeared to be 27 people that had this new pneumonia.
So the question is, what are we going to do about it?
We were already behind the curve.
There were a number of people raising red flags.
We were talking to everybody that we could find. We all understood that a failure on the federal level would have dire consequences.
Is blood on the hands of the Trump administration? Absolutely. Everybody at the national level, state, local, there's a lot of blood to go around for the lack of response to this disease. We are always at threat for the next pandemic. These viruses exist out in nature. As people go out in nature, they get infected and they move their way back into humans.
If we were to imagine the origins of COVID-19 as a movie, it would begin at the end of the Contagion movie. Exactly that process of bulldozing down the forest, bats flying off, infecting livestock, that then we get infected. That happens every day, every week. That's how these things begin. Wuhan is a major hub on the wildlife trade pathway. It's close to hotspot areas for new coronaviruses.
Ever since the COVID pandemic hit, we've been trying to determine if anybody knew anything about a contagion sweeping through Wuhan last fall, and when did they know it.
Researchers looked at satellite photos of Wuhan hospitals in October of 2019, and what they show are packed parking lots. All those red dots are cars. And we took those photos and we put them next to October of 2018, mirror images, and you can clearly see in some cases there are 50 to 90% more cars. That shows that those hospitals were busy during this time. Then they found another clue when they looked at Baidu. That's the Google search engine for China. During this time, there was an increase in searches for terms like cough and diarrhea, two symptoms of COVID-19. Now, this is 3 months before China announces that they have a problem with the coronavirus. Clearly, something was happening in Wuhan.
On the 29th of October, we flew to Wuhan to start the river part of the cruise on the Yangtze. We were very excited. We had not ever been to Wuhan. At the time, it seemed weird. The treatment of us on this particular city was different than other cities we'd been in on this tour. were lined up to get onto the ship, they really emphasized, stay in line, you don't have time to go wander anywhere. And once we were on the ship, nobody was allowed to get off. Having 150 Western tourists from UK, Australia, Canada, United States get sick and trace back to Wuhan might have not been a good idea. We were immediately told that we would be leaving, and bing, bang, boom, we were gone.
3, 2, 1, Happy New Year!
So I was at home with my wife and a couple of friends. We were cooking a dinner and celebrating the New Year's.
I was snuggled on the couch with my sons, watching the ball drop in New York.
They say close to 1.5 million people have gathered here tonight.
And it was the first time in a long time that I had an opportunity to get my whole family back together. And I did get a phone call from my colleagues at CDC that there was a mysterious new pneumonia that appeared not to be flu.
You have a brand new virus that's jumped species from an animal to a human.
And immediately that was an alarm bell.
It was clear the threat was real and the threat was serious.
On New Year's Eve, if someone had told me a pandemic was coming, that wouldn't have surprised me. The world was overdue, for one. And that's what's always kept me up at night.
It is the perfect storm and my worst nightmare.
The end of 2019 into 2020, the Trump White House wasn't focused on a global pandemic, but frankly, nobody was in Washington.
We do have breaking news tonight. President Trump has just been impeached on both.
First of all, the president had just been impeached. We were going into an impeachment trial.
Quite frankly, we were focused on Iran that first week.
The stunning sight, millions of Iranians taking to the streets, demanding revenge for the killing of their top military leader.
There is a lot going on that is consuming all attention, the president's attention, the Democrats' attention in Congress, the military's attention, beyond a global pandemic.
Chinese health authorities are still working to identify the virus behind a pneumonia outbreak in the central city of Wuhan.
There were reports of unexplained pneumonia cases in Wuhan, China. There were images emerging of people in hazmat suits spraying down a seafood market. It kind of gave me a bit of a chill.
Reading about people being locked into apartment buildings, streets being closed off, entire cities being cordoned, that is a signal of how serious this pathogen was.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Have a great year.
As we ring in the new year, President Trump is in Florida at Mar-a-Lago.
We wrote up our first situation report on January 1st. I had my first meetings to discuss this with the National Security Council on January 2nd.
What's not publicly known is that behind the scenes, in the presidential daily brief, there's information being put in telling the president that there's something strange happening in the Wuhan region of China.
We felt that this had potential to be a very serious situation that had national security implications.
Dr. Redfield at the CDC, he's on the phone with Dr. Fauci.
It was zing bang back and forth. Both of us agreed that this looks, smells, and almost certainly is a new coronavirus. And the question is, what are we going to do about it?
Is this a pathogen that goes from animals to humans? Or is this a pathogen that went from human to human?
Bob was trying to get information in real time, exactly what was going on over there. The frustration is that he wanted to get his team there and to go to Wuhan and find out what was going on, but the Chinese were not allowing that.
I had strongly suggested that we send some CDC folks in to help out, and the president actually made the request to President of China that we'd be able to come in and assist.
And the Chinese are stonewalling. They're not letting them have access to the key sites.
We had literally, 20, 30 people ready to go.
The fact that they were not allowed to go there in real time and see what was going on was very disconcerting to us.
So on January 8th, the CDC issues its first health alert connected to the pandemic.
And President Trump heads to Ohio, where he holds this big rally.
Make America great again.
No, the president didn't publicly predict any danger.
And America's future has never, ever looked brighter. Never.
In early January, China hasn't released the genome or the genetic map of the virus.
You need the genome of the virus to develop tests and drugs and vaccines, and there were significant delays in sharing it with the world.
On January 12th, the Chinese government, after resisting American requests for information, releases the genetic sequence of the virus.
All right, all hands on deck. We got to make a vaccine because we don't know where this is going. There's a lot of unknowns.
It was just a matter of time before it arrived in the United States. To think otherwise would be completely naive.
Nothing 180, maintain 5,000, still session, localized, cleared ILS, and I want to share approach.
On January 15th, a man landed at the Seattle airport.
He was in his 30s, no pre-existing medical problems. He traveled to visit family in Wuhan, China.
He took a rideshare car home from the airport, and right away, the next day, he started feeling sick.
After a few days of feeling poorly at home, he came to one of our clinics. He basically said, I've recently traveled to Wuhan. I've got a cough and a fever, and I'm concerned I might have coronavirus. They contacted the local health officer who recommended testing. They also involved the CDC to run the case through them. At that point,
We were not allowed to test at state public health, and local public health departments were not able to test either. So if we wanted a patient tested, we had to first receive approval or clearance from the CDC. We had to make a case that the patient met their very strict criteria.
So patient 0, his sample had to be flown overnight to the CDC lab in Atlanta, and he was told to quarantine. He was sent home.
It was a big surprise when we got the call.
The test was positive. It was January 20th. Patient 0 had been identified, and now officially COVID-19 was on American soil.
President Trump is at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where he answers for the first time on whether he's worried about the growing pandemic in China.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China, and we have it under control. It's going to be just fine.
Well, I never thought it would be just fine, because I didn't think we were doing what was necessary to make it just fine.
But the administration were still saying this was a problem overseas.
This is a serious health situation in China, but I want to emphasize that the risk to the American public currently is low. I think in January and February, there was a sense that we still had this under control.
January was really our opportunity as a country to contain this virus before it spread like wildfire. And that opportunity was missed.
At this point, COVID-19 is on American shores. Question is, was there a plan for the federal government to deal with the pandemic? And it turns out that successive administrations previously had already laid the groundwork for pandemic response.
You know, President Bush deserves a lot of credit for what he did in 2005.
In August 2005, President Bush goes to Crawford, Texas, to his ranch for what is supposed to be a long vacation. And he reads a book about the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic by John Barry, and it freaks him out.
Sometime prior to the spring of 1918, an animal virus killed between 50 and 100 million people.
And he sees Barry talking about how these pandemics happen every 100 years or so. You have something massive like this, and he's looking at the calendar.
We'll hear all of us soon.
President Bush knows personal experience that things he did not anticipate can happen and can cause severe damage and kill a lot of people. 9/11, Katrina, could the next big one be a global pandemic?
By then, we'd already had the SARS experience, and then so-called bird flu, which was pretty scary. That's a pretty good reason to get your attention.
He challenged us to come up with a government-wide, national, not just federal government, strategy for dealing with it should it happen.
The President of the United States.
They get Congress to appropriate money, real money, $7 billion behind this plan.
If we wait for a pandemic to appear, it will be too late to prepare. One day, many lives could be needlessly lost because we failed to act today.
So there was a robust national response. As with all outbreaks, we got the periodic increase in interest in public health, infectious diseases, health security, and then eventually interest would wane, and then you see a decrease in funds. So it's a usual bust and boom cycle for public health, unfortunately.
Tonight, outbreak, a new and deadly strain of flu.
The Obama administration has to deal with an outbreak almost immediately after Obama becomes president.
Every American should know that their entire government is taking the utmost precautions and preparations.
It's dealt with pretty quickly. And you go back to the cycle of complacency. There are other problems that are more pressing. But 5 years later, 2014, Ebola.
An outbreak of a disease so fierce, so deadly, even the word strikes terror.
This scares the hell out of everybody.
President Obama and Vice President Biden have authorized an unprecedented whole-of-government response to the Ebola crisis. And the good news is that we're starting to see some results from that.
When I was winding up my work on Ebola, I met with the president and said to him, we need to build a permanent structure at the White House.
The funding we're asking for is needed to prevent and deal with future outbreaks and threats before they become epidemics.
And he set up a pandemic prevention office in the National Security Council to get us ready for that more deadly, more dangerous, more rapidly spreading epidemic that was going to come to this country someday.
Donald Trump takes office. He has some people in his national security apparatus who served under President Bush, who see this also as a significant issue.
More turnover in this White House than any other administration in recent history.
The challenge is when you have had as many turnovers in this administration, a lot of that work that would have been done during the transition has been lost.
But eventually, President Trump's third national security advisor, John Bolton, decides to do away with the section of the National Security Council that specifically deals with pandemics, just eliminates it. Now, the Trump administration says they were just streamlining the National Security Council and that some of those staffers were reassigned but continued to work on the issue of pandemic preparedness. It's not like the government stops worrying about a global pandemic, but make no mistake, at this point, this is not a major priority in the Trump administration.
One thing that the Obama administration left was a pandemic playbook. And on page 9 of the pandemic playbook, it said, hey, here's something to worry about, a coronavirus. I don't know if the Trump administration didn't pay attention to the playbook. I don't know if they didn't read it. What we do know is they didn't run the plays in that playbook. And it would have made a big difference if they had.
What's eerie about an outbreak, every outbreak I've run, is that in the beginning it's always quiet.
In February, the country was going along its way.
On February 1st, the Surgeon General even tweeted, "Roses are red, violets are blue. Risk is low for the coronavirus, but it's high for the flu."
February 1st, President Trump, he's at Mar-a-Lago.
He's playing golf. He's hosting a Super Bowl party.
The first thing he does in February is that he bans travel to and from China.
The U.S. is closing the door to slow the spread of novel coronavirus.
And he then goes on to basically brag about it on Fox News.
Coronavirus, how concerned are you?
Well, we pretty much shut it down coming in from China. It was a good idea to do travel restriction from China because it was clear that that's the source that was seeding us.
The truth is that travel ban was probably already too late when it was put into place.
And the world didn't know it, but the virus had already jumped continents because of that commerce very early on.
As February develops, the president proceeds to downplay the virus.
You know, a lot of people think that goes away in April with the heat.
But behind the scenes, a group of people, current and former senior federal government officials, top doctors, are engaged in a series of email chains called Red Dawn.
I had seen the movie, yes, a pretty good, cheesy 1980s classic.
Wolverines! Our group has been referred to as the Wolverines. You know, I guess we're the group in the movie that saved the United States.
These signs were out there pretty early, and the surprise to us was that folks weren't learning this out of the official channels that should have been broadcasting that information. On my email, some Pentagon officials had essentially written off this pandemic as a bad flu. And so this was my somewhat tongue-in-cheek response to that, and I described Napoleon's retreat from Moscow, just a little stroll gone bad, Pompeii, a bit of a dust storm, and Wuhan, just a bad flu season.
The Red Dawn group ultimately becomes fixated on a cruise ship in the Far East, the Diamond Princess, because of an outbreak of the coronavirus on board.
Today, 70 new cases of the virus have been confirmed on board the ship.
Reading from the Red Dawn email chain, which Dr. Carter Metcher noted, the case count aboard that cruise ship is now up to 136. This is unbelievable. We're so far behind the curve.
So the Diamond Princess was one red flag amongst a sea of red flags at that point of what we should have been doing as Americans to be prepared. As you know, in those early days, we still had not ramped up testing in the United States.
When there's a new pathogen like this, you know, the CDC sets out to develop a test.
That's routinely what we do, and we do it very well, which they did, and they did it in record time, 7 to 10 days.
And initially, we were all flooded with relief. We can test.
And they immediately came across a problem.
The initial samples that came from the CDC that was sent out didn't work, so they had to call them back.
And so the CDC then had to send out a second batch of test kits, which also had a problem. And as the weeks ticked by, we were running out of time to contain the spread of this virus, and we knew it.
It took us about close to 4 to 5 weeks to figure out the contamination, and within 5 weeks, we got the test to the health departments throughout the nation, which I would still say is pretty record time.
In an outbreak scenario, every day matters. Our chances to contain this virus were gone.
We could have brought in the gigantic manufacturers of diagnostic tests, and our failure to take that approach with a homegrown test out of CDC has cost us lives.
I don't think CDC will manufacture tests in the future. I think what we'll do is we'll contract a manufacturer to manufacture the tests.
This was pretty much the most critical time in the outbreak for us to be flying blind. The virus was seeding America, and sadly, lives were lost.
On Valentine's Day weekend, I was part of a number of Square Dance events where I and many others contracted COVID-19. If we had known, we could have taken some precautions, or we might have been able to cancel, or we might have done something different. Within 2 weeks, the first person in the Square Dance community would be dead. It was a very sad, it was a very sad time, and it still is. Because these people were good people, and they were my friends, and they were taken from us.
By the middle of February, the federal government was only processing about 100 COVID-19 tests a day. Meanwhile, alarm bells are ringing all around the world.
So far, 454 cruise passengers have been infected.
And then as February developed, President Trump held a series of campaign rallies.
I think it's going to work out fine. I think when we get into April and the warmer weather, that has a very negative effect on that.
Near the end of February, some of the testing becomes more available.
The CDC began to ship out the new version of the test.
In Kirkland, Washington, Dr. Francis Rito decides he's going to randomly test 2 of his patients. And shockingly, they both come back as positive for coronavirus.
I knew this was the event. This was now the beginning. Everything changed at that point.
And that's when we first started realizing the first community spread that was not related to an identifiable source.
Without a doubt, February was a lost month for this nation's response.
It's going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
Meanwhile, the CDC is confirming the first COVID-19 death in the United States.
The disconnect between what the president was saying and what we knew to be the science, it was frightening.
Obviously, there was a failure of leadership in dealing with this pandemic, without question.
It was too late. The outbreaks were already out of control. There was no way to stop it at that point. We'd missed our chance to contain it.
There was a parade of ambulances coming from Life Care.
Tonight, coronavirus spreading in the U.S. The death toll now rising.
This disease is running rampage through this facility.
A state of emergency issued in Washington state.
March is the month that we will never forget. That's when the pandemic really hit our shores and things started to explode.
My mom was living at Life Care Center of Kirkland in February of 2020.
Officials in Washington losing patients with the nursing home where most of the fatalities from the coronavirus occurred.
And CDC hadn't shown up on the scene yet to be support. Staff clearly wasn't able to deal with it, and I got a phone call from the nurse saying that Mom had passed.
Doctor said, how do you know so much about this? Maybe I have a natural ability. Maybe I should have done that instead of running for president.
There wasn't a lot of urgency, and that's where leadership becomes really critical.
And so we're part of dealing with this crisis, not leading it at that time, but obviously in support. And it was my belief that this would have to be a bigger response.
If the virus is in China, didn't someone expect that the virus was going to get on a plane and travel? And it did. And it wasn't in China anymore. It went to Europe, and it went to Italy, and it went to France.
Tonight, the World Health Organization declaring it a global pandemic.
The NBA overnight suspending its season until further notice.
Breaking at this hour, the financial markets in free fall, the worst day since Black Monday crash of 1987.
My fellow Americans, to keep new cases from entering our shores, we will be suspending all travel from Europe to the United States for the next 30 days.
He misstated the nature of the travel restriction. He said he was banning everyone, and that led to a panic. It led to thousands and thousands of people coming back from Europe who didn't need to come back.
People ended up in those crowded hallways for a long period of time, and many were exposed and reportedly have passed because of their exposure waiting and to clear customs.
And by the time we realized Europe threat and shut down travel to Europe, there was already probably 2 or 3 weeks of 60,000 people coming back every day from Europe.
I'm a registered nurse and I work in an emergency department in New York City. There was not enough tests to test everybody that wanted a test.
The U.S. badly trailed the world in March on the testing situation.
The situation with the CDC and the testing had become so extreme that by March 13th, on the Red Dawn email chain, Dr. James Lawler sounded the alarm. How are you supposed to know when you have community transmission, when they haven't been able to provide a diagnostic assay that can be used widely and at high volume?
We were talking to everybody that we could find to communicate why we were concerned and what we thought we needed to be doing as a nation.
We always knew that there were a lot more cases out there than we were diagnosing. 23% of people in New York City have antibodies. So a quarter of New York City was infected with this virus.
It was inevitable that this novel coronavirus would show up in New York City. What they didn't expect was that it would be transmitted silently in the population, and then they had no tests.
Anybody that needs a test gets a test. They're there. They have the tests, and the tests are beautiful.
It's not true, because tests are physical objects. We can count them. We didn't have enough.
When the pandemic first began, I chose not to stay home because my bills still had to be paid, and I'm a grocery worker, and that's what I do.
What was needed was a way to make essential work safer. Estimates are that something like 40% of the workforce continued working. Essential workers were at the end of that long line.
Everybody wanted to know, hey, how can I get tested? Where can I get tested?
March 12th, I get put in charge of testing. It had been decided at some point in time, not in this administration, that test supplies were not going to be part of the stockpile. So when I looked to see what was there was nothing there. There's no game plan. There was nothing.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency.
Across America, almost 22,000 schools shuttered, forcing 15 million kids to stay home.
Major areas of American life shutting down to stop the spreading coronavirus.
There's images of healthcare workers in other countries that are fighting this virus wearing full-on hazmat bunny suits. Meanwhile, here, we are wearing garbage bags and week-old N95s. I did not feel protected. I did not feel safe.
We need those masks, those gowns, gloves, and we need them now.
One of the things that people don't realize is that the manufacturer of personal protection equipment, or PPE, the majority of that production is offshore, not in the United States.
So we're going to put out an executive order today. New York State on pause.
The Defense Production Act, or DPA, allows the federal government to order manufacturers to produce the supplies needed.
And the calls are growing louder by the day for President Trump to invoke this act. But he was really hesitant to do it.
He's used it 600 times as president. When there's something he wants to do, he's willing to use that power.
And whatever the states can get, they should be getting. I say we're sort of a backup for the states. And some of the states are doing really well, and some don't do as well.
The president's position was the states were in charge. States, the governors, the governors, the governors. You know, I'm calling China to buy PPE. Every governor is calling China to buy masks, right? It made no sense.
What do we want? PPE! What do we need it? Now!
Nurses were getting put on ventilators. We were dying. And what angers me the most, I think, is that these deaths were 100% preventable.
FEMA says we're sending 400 ventilators. Really? What am I going to do with 400 ventilators when I need 30,000? You pick the 26,000 people who are going to die because you only sent 400 ventilators. Where's the PPEs? Where are they? President said it's a war. It is a war. Well, then act like it's a war.
Typically, the world production of ventilators is about 30,000 ventilators a year, which sounds like a lot, but when you're in a pandemic, and every country in the world is looking for PPE and ventilators, it doesn't last too long.
So you have 50 states competing to buy the same item. It's like being on eBay with 50 other states bidding on a ventilator.
It should not have been left to each state to figure out what to do. We're all connected. I mean, honestly, this is one nation. We need one response.
The U.S. now has more cases of coronavirus than anywhere in the world. In New York, cases soaring, hospitalizations doubling every 4 days. This packed emergency room at a hospital in New York City, and doctors describing New York hospitals as a war zone.
I had maybe 12, 13 patients, and they were all super critical. They were all dying, and our numbers started to dwindle because nurses started to get sick because, again, lack of PPE.
This is something that has been talked about and warned about and studied and anticipated by experts in Republican and Democratic administrations for years.
Okay, thank you very much. Moments ago, I directed Secretary Azar and Acting Secretary Wolf to use any and all available authority under the Defense Production Act.
Ultimately, he did end up invoking it and forcing some companies to help in this process of making ventilator parts. But at that point, the damage was done. A lot of critics said these ventilators had been needed, and a lot of companies were already, frankly, making them. They didn't need the act to tell them to do it.
And President Trump didn't invoke the DPA for PPE. That was needed the most. And he still hasn't invoked the DPA for that, and it's left essential workers to deal with it themselves.
We're not even at the peak yet. The death toll just keeps rising and rising.
My mom was goofy. Like, she was really fun to be around. March 18th, she woke up, she wasn't feeling well. Her first thought was that it could possibly be COVID. When I went to see her, she looked like she was deteriorating. I spoke with her doctor, and he just pretty much just flat out like, you know, this isn't gonna turn out well. Just hearing those words like just put me just in a horrible place. She was 63 and she was healthy. She was healthy.
Local jurisdictions, not the federal government, start noting that they're seeing big racial ethnic disparities in mortality.
While this pandemic is impacting every one of us, it isn't impacting everyone equally.
The headlines about the disparities were beginning at the end of March.
Among Chicagoans with COVID-19, more than half are African Americans.
70% of all the deaths in Louisiana are of African Americans.
80% of Washingtonians who have died from this disease are African American.
Thank you very much. It's showing up very strongly in our data on the African American community, and we're doing everything in our power to address this challenge. It's a tremendous challenge. It's terrible.
It should not have been surprising. Historically, we do know that minority populations, low-income populations are at increased risk for exposure during a pandemic. We saw it with Hurricane Katrina. We saw it with H1N1. We published it in 2009 and targeted, tailored interventions to reach the most vulnerable. You don't stigmatize these populations. You enable them to follow the recommendations of staying home.
My administration's closely monitoring the data on the virus's impact on our cherished African American communities.
The president said he was concerned about this. His task force said they were concerned about this. But I can never get the sense that there was any significant action plan.
Well, the whole thing, from the federal point of view, has been failure to take responsibility.
We put out a civil rights bulletin to make sure that the resources that we delivered to those impacted by COVID-19 was done in a fair way. I think we're pretty proactive.
The role of the federal government in this pandemic is very, very clear who's missing. Leadership that mirrors the diversity of the United States population. When you see that, then we'll probably see different outcomes.
I don't think we've made enough progress in dealing with disparities in health. In order for African Americans, Hispanics, and Native Americans to respond to any kind of challenge to their health, like a pandemic,
those deaths could have been prevented. And that's the most troubling part.
President Trump just moments ago saying it is time for the next front in this war. It is time to open up America again.
April 16th, Dr. Fauci stand in the White House briefing room and say, here's the plan for reopening.
You go into phase 1. If you get no rebound, then you go to phase 2. If you have no rebound, you go into phase 3.
The next day, the president's tweeting people to ignore his own experts' plan.
Are you more concerned about the economy? It should be the people first, at all costs.
African Americans are a core part of the essential workforce. I think if the data show that high-income whites were contracting the virus at a higher rate, we would be looking at a different response from governmental officials across the country.
The reopening, from a health perspective, it was reckless.
Problems of leadership can be very dangerous because it affects how everybody else responds.
So with the masks, I'm choosing not to do it.
And I'm not doing it because I woke up in a free country. President Trump's announcement that he wasn't going to wear one, I think we're still suffering from that. It's all about freedom.
What you see by the end of April is complete chaos.
coronavirus cases in the U.S. approach 1 million, more states rolling out plans to open up.
When you mix science and politics, you get politics. You're going to get deaths that could have been avoided.
My dad was a first-generation Mexican-American who grew up in the cantaloupe fields. May 15th was when Arizona officially opened up. So my dad, in listening to the advice of people in charge, thought it was safe for him to resume normal activities. On June 11th, my dad woke up with extreme exhaustion, a cough, and a fever. Mark Anthony Urquiza passed away on June 30th. His death is due to the carelessness of the politicians who continue to jeopardize the health of brown bodies through a clear lack of leadership, refusal to acknowledge the severity of the crisis, and inability and unwillingness to give clear and decisive direction on how to minimize risk. If we really want to address structural racism in this country, we need to get real with ourselves about the impact that coronavirus is having on these communities.
Things that we can do now is to try and concentrate resources, testing capabilities, access to care. When we get out of this, we've got to do something about the social determinants of health. That's a long-term problem that we should make a long-term goal.
The man who died while in Minneapolis police custody is George Floyd.
That case exploded into the national consciousness. Thousands of people taking to the street.
We go from this disease is making you not be able to breathe, and to him hollering on that street that he can't breathe. So, and then you look at the climate of the country, I'm saying, look at the correlation.
We essentially had awareness of two sort of important public health events simultaneously. The virus, which we'd been experiencing, and the racial pandemic that was with us all along.
We got hit by the virus that came from China. And we've made a lot of progress. Our strategy is moving along well.
When you open, you have to open safely, right? And we never ever got this right. We now have the greatest public health failure in our nation's history.
"99 days after the CDC made its mask recommendation, President Trump wearing a mask in public for the first time.
Florida now has more new cases of coronavirus daily than most countries in the world.
There is a very heated debate underway across this country about schools.
Deaths from the virus now climbing in 27 states as nearly half the country either pauses or reverses reopening.
July is only half over, but it's already been the worst month for coronavirus cases in the U.S.
The story this summer is February and March in the Northeast has become July and August in the Sun Belt, in particular in Florida, in Georgia, in Arizona.
We have made missteps. People are dead because of those missteps.
We were late to the game. The virus had taken hold in the country. There was a lot of lost time.
It's a very challenging thing, the missed opportunities that ultimately led to the deaths.
We've just experienced a systemic failure. We really need to figure out how to prevent this from ever happening again.
In order for every American to participate in the solution, they have to first understand the reality of the threat that we're facing.
Even if we can't seem to get it right in Washington, I would love to see the American citizens come together and say, we're going to fight this. We're going to be united in how we approach this disease.
The current state of affairs is not our destiny. We can get this disease under control using strategies that have been used all over the world successfully. So message number one, mask on, okay? Anytime you're out in public, wear this thing.
It may take sacrifice, but now is the time for sacrifice.
The biggest challenge we face is leadership. The way you tackle a pandemic is by listening to your public health leaders. We're seeing the opposite of that.
Receiving mixed messages from different elected officials is confusing.
It's been a roller coaster, really. In some ways, we're going through the cycles of grief continuously.
If we don't get this under control, we're just going to continue to see these surges and hopscotching across the U.S.
The United States is currently spiking in cases, and the cost of that is human lives.